sense of this together. I take something positive that people are in the room, and they haven't, for a moment there, the Secret Service was telling guests of this dinner to get under the tables as if there was still an active threat. So as we take our breath here, again, there are now various media executives and reporters who are on their phones, but they're not cleared from the room. So that suggests to us there's an incident, but they haven't been told to leave the hotel. Now, I don't know if there's something going on outside the hotel, and they don't want to put people in harm's way outside, and they're trying to clear a threat there, and it's better to keep everyone in that ballroom. But this is the largest ballroom in Washington. That's why the White House Correspondents Association has it there every year.
And obviously,
this is remarkable. This
storied history, too, with Reagan also being shot.
He was shot at this hotel, not for a dinner, but he was outside.
We want to also set the scene here because there was a calmness. The program had started. We had heard the band playing. The correspondence president had come out to say it was very meaningful that President Trump and Melania were there. This was obviously highly anticipated, his first time as president to attend the correspondence dinner. As you mentioned, many of the cabinet members are there inside the ballroom as well. And it was unfolding in a very normal fashion. You know, albeit we were waiting to see the president talk, and the big conversation was about the jobs he would get into with the press and the media. Of course,
that this was going to be a fun night, not a serious, scary night.
Quickly unfolding now. Of course, the scene is and the mood has obviously changed with this sudden development of potentially shots or some loud banging noises. Also, according to reports, the president. It's getting unclear if he was on the stage at the moment, but he had been on the stage with the First Lady as this was happening. You know, and we just also have to underscore in this climate, President Trump, with the attempted assassinations on him.
Yes.
You know that there has been an intense. We were actually at Mar-a-Lago earlier today where the president was before going to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, good point.
And it is fortified there, and we can only imagine the extra precautions that have been in place, are in place, especially with a high visibility profile like this. We know that some of the people outside, you know, there's been known to be protesters outside this event. This is not a place where the president, you know, they didn't actually, I don't believe, even walk the red carpet.
Right.
So,
no, usually the president does not.
He was not, you know, in visibility with a lot of people, very, very locked in, brought out to the stage in a very secure.
Right. There's a holding room,
mingling.
as I mentioned. There's sort of a VIP pre-dinner reception.
So they were taking every precaution.
Where the president would have been, because I've attended this with presidents, whether it's President Obama, President George W. Bush, and they would be there in a very secure room. With 100 to 200 people maximum, and everybody that's in that room has been swept, make sure they don't have weapons. So it would be highly unlikely that the president would have been in a dangerous situation in that reception room. My question is, once we get Mike Carter on the phone, who's there on the scene, is whether the president was en route from that reception room behind the dais on the way to the stage, which is a little less secure. Okay, so we have Mike Carter, a White House correspondent, on the phone. Mike, you've got Ed and Bianca here. What do you know at this moment, sir?
Ed and Bianca, we're about 5 minutes into this melee here at the White House Correspondents' Dinner at the Hilton, Washington. President Trump just rushed off stage after we heard what sounded like gunshots coming from the back of the ballroom. Now, this is not confirmed, but again, we're seated right in the middle of the White House Correspondents' dinner here. We're right in the middle of the ballroom, so halfway between President Trump, halfway between the back of the ballroom. You know, everyone is kind of having their salad, drinking some wine, getting ready for the festivities. They just got done with the national anthem. The president had walked on stage. We did have just initial pleasantries, and no one's really paying too much attention. And then pow, pow, pow from the back of the ballroom, doors were open. And then all of a sudden, everyone gets down on the floor, and then we look towards the back of the ballroom where the gunshot, what we think were gunshots. We see Secret Service, law enforcement running into the ballroom, grabbing President Trump on the dais, and of course bringing him off. There's still a lot of confusion as to what exactly just occurred here. Whether that was gunfire, whether anyone is injured, we don't know. Everyone is just wondering what is going on. A lot of confusion, but again, this is something that the security is always high profile in mind ever since Butler, Pennsylvania, during the Trump administration's campaign for office. We're very mindful that anything could happen whenever you're in a situation with the President of the United States, Donald Trump. So he has been removed from the ballroom. His status, him and Melania Trump, Caroline Leavitt was here as well. And everyone on the dais is now gone. And you have thousands of journalists here in Washington in this ballroom wondering what is next? What happens now? How this is one of the more unexpected moments here.
Okay, Mike.
Covering the Trump.
Let me just, pardon me 1 second. I just want to add that one of our colleagues who's there is trying to get us some information, and he is saying that he's hearing reports there on the ground. Some people are now getting on the dais, as you see, because we have a live look, that apparently a shooter, quote unquote, is dead, as if there was someone trying to harm the president and maybe others, and has been taken down, presumably by law enforcement, Secret Service. Have you heard anything like that yet? Is there any confirmation of that?
No, we can't confirm that, Ed, right now. We are literally in the middle of a sea of people right now. Now,
Okay.
Those gunshots may have been Secret Service taking out that suspect before that suspect could get rounds off. I just simply don't know. I can't confirm either way right now. But what we did know is we did hear gunshots going off, and if what your contact is saying is true, that would make a lot of sense here, because things have moved very quickly here in the last 5-7 minutes.
Can you describe the security going into the event? Because there's obviously, if there was a potential for the shooter, the doors open, there's a shooter who might be down. Talk to us. You went through that security. What was it? There's obviously layers and layers, but clearly wasn't enough. Just walk us through the process here for someone to be able to access that room there that night.
I will say this was a much lighter brand of security than we usually end up seeing at a typical Trump rally. Now, what do I mean by that? Essentially, you have a TSA set up whenever President Trump goes to speak, much like you did here at the Hilton tonight, but essentially, it was just walking through a magnetometer, and then you're in. There was not a heavy set of police law enforcement visible at the front entrance. I took an Uber here in Washington and walked from a few blocks away right into the hotel. I had to show my ticket, of course, to get past security. But the first line of actual physical security, where I was put into a magnetometer, wasn't until I was well inside the hotel. So do with that information what you will, but anyone, if they had a ticket to this event tonight, could have walked in off the street and got anything with them. So this is something that I'm sure Secret Service is going to go over, the administration is going to go over. I was surprised myself at how easy it was to walk off the street into this hotel tonight, well before being confronted with any kind of magnetometer.
Jump in. There is some video now I'm seeing on X, and we're going to try to turn it ourselves, of the president safe. Now, I don't know where he is at this moment, but the video I'm seeing is basically suggesting the president was on the dais, up on the stage, when the apparent shots that you refer to rang out in the back of the ballroom. And the president is safe in this video and is shuffled out by the Secret Service, and then a lot of law enforcement with guns come on the stage to secure the scene. So initially, Mike, it appears that the president was not hit or harmed by any apparent shots that came. Again, we're being careful because as you're being careful, we don't know all the details. But the initial video we're seeing suggests that the president, at least at the beginning of this, was safe and then was brought off the stage, Mike.
And Ed and Bianca, I'll give you some perspective from where President Trump was carried off the dais there. From President Trump's perspective, about, I want to say, 30 to 40 yards in front of him, directly in front of him, is where the back of the ballroom was. That's where those doors were open. They're all closed now, about 5 exit doors. They were wide open, and that's where we heard the direction of the gunshots coming from. So if that suspect had a line of fire, it would have been a direct line of fire at President Trump. Again, we don't know if the suspect got gunshots off. We don't know if they were taken out by law enforcement, but the gunshots seemed, from my perspective, again, we're right in the middle of the ballroom, about 20 yards in front of the president, 20 yards in front of the back of the ballroom, right in the middle. That person would have been lined up directly in front of President Trump, about 30, 40 yards away.
About 30 or 40 yards away. That is chilling because I am at a loss here, Bianca, to understand, as I'm sure our viewers are, after all of these threats, as Mike has outlined so well in his reporting, that this president has faced the assassination attempt. How could a shooter get this close to the president?
It is stunning to hear that. Again, if you're just joining us, President Trump rushed off the stage. Our Mike Carter giving us some inside color of what is happening right now as you're looking live here. Reports are that President Trump, there's video of him and he is okay. But how a shooter was able to get into such a sensitive area.
Absolutely.
Where the president, who has had 2 assassination attempts, we're at a war with Iran where there's a fatwa on his life.
It's incredible.
And yet here we are. I'm also trying to understand too. The ballroom's on lockdown, which does make sense if they've got a shooter.
If they think they've contained the shooter. So, Mike, can you? Pardon me one second, Mike. What's happening around you? There's obviously a lot happening. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? Or is anyone in authority telling you what's next?
No, we're stuck in the middle of the ballroom now. Ed and Bianca, everyone is standing up. We do have some commotion now towards one end of the ballroom.
Right. It looks like they're letting people out.
Sitting on the, to my left anyways, looking at the stage, to my left. At the far left of the ballroom does appear to be a kind of a rush towards the exit now.
Okay, exactly.
The reporters leaving.
Right, Mike, you can't see that, but you can see it live, right? And on our screen right now, live, we are showing a lot of people streaming out. So is that what it appears?
Yeah, we're seeing people leave. Again, and I'm right in the middle of the dais here, so I'm just observing it from about 200 feet away, Ed and Bianca. But people are trying to get out of the ballroom. They did have us locked down for about a betterment of 10 minutes after this incident occurred, and now it appears anyone who wants to leave is trying to get the heck out of here. Obviously, this dinner has been.
It doesn't look like it's going forward.
Ended for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, well, the most important thing is for everyone there, especially the President of the United States and the First Lady, to be safe, including you. It's remarkable. I was at dinner at Mar-a-Lago last night. I saw the president, spoke to him just for a brief second, not a real and he waved and he talked to some people, and he looked like he's in great spirits. He's in the middle of this war, as Mike has been reporting. Bianca, here's the video. Let's watch. Mike, stand by. This is the president. 10, 15 minutes ago as this played out. Let's roll the video if we have it. Okay, so it looks like our mics are hot. So I think I saw the First Lady put her hand over her mouth. She clearly heard gunshots or something.
And here they are.
And now they're being rushed out. This is the video I was referring to a moment ago that certainly appears the president and first lady are safe. Now, unfortunately, we don't know what happened when they were whisked away. One would expect that the Secret Service put a phalanx around them and that they're heading back to the White House, which is just a couple of minutes from there. You see the president looking up in this video, Mike, and he looks alarmed, like what's going on, and then all of a sudden the Secret Service.
I do want to share here, TMZ, and we will source them, are saying that the shooter has been killed outside the Correspondents'
Yes, those
Center.
have been reports.
So
and
those are reports that...
I'm seeing the Citizens app, which covers law enforcement, saying that there were some protesters as well, guys, that breached some of the areas. I'm not sure if the protesters were, included the shooter or whether there were shooters. These initial reports from TMZ and others suggest a shooter. As I mentioned a moment ago, okay, and you can see
there's the face.
One of the reporters who's up there, it looks like maybe the president of the White House Correspondents Association.
Yeah,
she's
from
with CBS.
Yeah.
She put her hand over her mouth. There she is. Hand over her mouth, and thanks for stopping that right there, as if she heard the initial gunshot. Mike, real quick, do you have anything else? Because we want to bring in some analysts to analyze. Mike, do you have anything else real quick?
They just had a presenter come to the podium and say that the festivities will resume. So it does appear that God knows how this is going to work, but they are going to try to continue this event this evening. Obviously, the president is gone, and you have a number of people that are clearly shaken up over this, but it does appear that you may be able to see the aftermath of this, and we hope to get more information and more information told to us here in the ballroom itself. But stay tuned, because it does appear that this program is going to still commence, at least in some form, momentarily.
All right, Mike, you stand by. Stay safe. Let our producers know when you have more.
Yep. Thanks, Mike. That was just moments ago. The video there, it is hard to watch again. President Trump at his very first White House Correspondents' Dinner had been there for less than 30 minutes here inside Washington Hilton.
He's heard this too many times before with these threats, these assassination attempts. This is a live look now. Let's bring in Charles Marino. I think we have him. He's our Homeland Security analyst, former top DHS official. And you can see various reporters. I think that's a C-SPAN anchor. There's Frank Luntz, the pollster behind him. People are trying to make sense looking at their phones at what's going on. The good news is it appears that people are safe, Bianca. But let's bring in Charles. Charles, you're seeing this as we... Oh, hang on one second. Here's the president of the association. Let's listen in.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we get... Where's the audio?
That audio.
I know everyone's going to want as many details as possible, and right now we don't have that, but I can tell you that our program is going to resume momentarily. We will have more details to share also momentarily, but for now, please just be patient as we figure out just how much time it will be, but it shouldn't be that much longer. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm kind of surprised they're going to go forward.
I am too, and the clapping for it. I mean, this should be I think a sobering reminder of the threats against our president's life. I know that they say the show must go on, but we really have to pause here. The gravity of this, the fact that someone was able to enter, it looks like they may have been, taken down. But this, again, too close for President Trump here.
I think Mike said about 40 yards from the president. Obviously, there are a lot of weapons out there that could reach President, First Lady, some of the reporters. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, was on stage as well.
And all the cabinet members that were sitting in there.
In different tables and whatnot. Let's bring in Charles Marino to analyze this. Charles, first of all, from a law enforcement standpoint, then we'll get to the event and all the rest of it. I still haven't heard a direct word from the White House about the president's safety, though the initial video we have suggests he was safe. What do you read in? What should we be looking at? What's going through your mind?
Well, there's a lot of things for the Secret Service to consider here. Is this just one of one or one of many? So they want to get the president out of there as quickly and as safely as possible. We saw a reaction both from the president and the first lady. So either they heard the shots or they saw the reactions of others that caused them concern. Obviously, we're going to want to know, did a weapon get into that screening mechanism that the Secret Service puts in place to prevent these types of weapons from making their way in?
Right.
Or was this something that happened outside of the screening area? In other words, did somebody try and come into the event already shooting at those magnetometer checkpoints where the Secret Service was forced to engage? Either way, we know that the threats against the President of the United States have never been higher in history than they are now, especially as we're engaged in a war with Iran. So the threats are off the charts right now. This is very concerning. I will be very surprised to see, Bianca, if this event goes on.
I know.
I see no reason for it to go on.
Yeah, why would they?
Right.
It's a grave concern.
The clapping was just so off tone.
Awkward,
Charles, let me
unbelievable.
ask you something, because we could focus on the perimeter of the security. There's protesters outside. Ed and I, when we were there a few years ago,
2 years ago, yeah.
Wild people. They were coming up after you. So we know there's a perimeter. We know there's magnetometers. So, well, what about the possibility that whomever this was, and we're assuming now it's one person, as you said, they still have not come out to say maybe there were others. Well, what if there was a weapon that was left days ago? I mean, talk to us about the sweep that should go on days before an event like this, because then somebody comes in, pretends to be an employee, pretends to be a delivery person, and there's something left behind for someone. You know, there's just so many things that can go wrong in a situation like this. But what are the security precautions as far as sweeping of the room here, in addition to the perimeter, which clearly was breached?
Yeah, you know, the advance process here for an event like this, once there's notification given that the president and the First Lady intend on attending, there's an advance process that takes place. And one of those things that is of great concern of the Secret Service is whether or not any type of weapons have been secreted beforehand, prior to that event. And that's where these sweeps, you're exactly right, that take place before the president and the First Lady ever arrive on the scene is taking place. Those include canine sweeps and technical security sweeps to make sure that there's nothing that could have been planted ahead of that could cause harm to the president or his family in advance, to make sure that those are detected, mitigated, and investigated as to whether or not the president should show up there anyway. So this is something that takes place with Secret Service procedures, with protocols, which tells me this is going to be more of a dynamic type of attack by whoever.
Charles, can I just ask you one more thing, because we're going to get to Jonathan Gilliam in a minute. There's a gentleman who is just up there with a yellow measuring tape. And I'm wondering if, you know, the president after Butler would only speak outdoors with a larger bulletproof podium that they use outdoors. And usually indoor, it's so secure, or it's supposed to be, that he didn't have that full bulletproof. I don't know what they're measuring, but it seems odd to me that maybe the Secret Service is going to try to bring the president back with bulletproof glass to address this audience, to say, hey, the shooter's not going to win here. But Charles, what do you make of that possibility of the president maybe coming back?
Yeah.
Well, we'll see, and ultimately that will be up to the Secret Service to give the go-ahead. As far as throwing up something like bulletproof glass, I'm not entirely sure that that's something that we would necessarily see, or something that's available, that's been built in on site as a just-in-case.
Okay, we're showing video now, by the way, of Secret Service officers running through the halls of the Washington Hilton, as you can see. Stand by, Charles, because we've got Jonathan Gilliam as well.
Thanks,
we want
Charles.
to get him in, and we appreciate you, Charles. We'll come back to you in a minute. Jonathan, what are you making of this video you're seeing? What's playing out here in Washington tonight, sir?
Well, you know, listening to Charles talk there just a second ago, I'm just astounded that there was any way that a shooter would be able to get into the vicinity of the president inside. As I'm watching this right here, I don't know. It's a weekend. I'm sitting here trying to create a hobby because I've always worked and work out. That's all I ever do. And I can't even do that because this ridiculousness keeps happening over and over again in this nation. And to see this response by the Secret Service of them moving towards something that's inside that. I'm astounded by it. I have been around the Secret Service for many, many years, starting when I was in college. Ronald Reagan, actually, even before that, when I was elementary or junior high, when Ronald Reagan visited Little Rock, Arkansas. And then again, when Bill Clinton was elected president, and I was working at a hotel and all the Secret Service were staying there. So I was the van driver taking them everywhere. And they were fit, they were astute, and no one got close. When Ronald Reagan came into town, they shut the whole city down. And yet somehow somebody gets a weapon inside of this event. I'm shocked by it, to be honest with you. You can tell I'm very frustrated by it.
Yeah, as are we. And then they said the program might continue. And Ed was just saying maybe, perhaps, if there was some type of bulletproof casing, which President Trump has been behind at public events, and also maybe there was, because this,
I don't know why else they'd have a measuring tape.
I don't know either. But the point here is, obviously this was high profile. President Trump, the perimeters, there's protesters there, Jonathan. We know that there were people saying that they should be shouting at the president. Some of the journalists wrote a letter. So heightened tensions. And the war in Iran with a fatwa out on President Trump. I mean, they've already put out those videos, remember, of him, the video put out by Iran where they said he would be assassinated at his golf course. I mean, this is a point now where what does it take to secure this president when he's going to an event like this? At the end of the day, you have to wonder, if there is a sense now where there can't be any other members of the public. I mean, it has to be something that's pre-taped, or he can't be moving in places like this where there are people out there with these, the protesters and the possibility of them breaking into a barricade here.
So I'll tell you, first of all, what I think that measuring tape was them setting up mics or the things that he reads off of right there. That very well could be them resetting things up if things got hit or moved around. I don't think that measuring tape was for a bulletproof, anything I do with bulletproof. I think that was microphone related.
Okay.
Now,
we'll see.
What you were saying, again, the Secret Service, I've been to many of these events. I worked at the United Nations General Assembly every year for 3 years as the FBI's representative in New York. And you just don't have people walking in that are not fully screened. You just don't have it. And I don't know if this individual was just outside the door, but even then there should be a perimeter set up where people are just not allowed to get in anywhere if they're in that room.
I'm looking at video here. Protesters crashing the Correspondents' Dinner, crashing, according to this video, calling out Hegseth, saying he should be arrested for war crimes. They're inside the building here. So you have the president, you have the vice president, you have members of the cabinet sitting in this room. Very high profile.
Well, that's part of the conversation too, obviously, right? We have a First Amendment, but the level of vitriol from the left.
Right.
Let's not forget also Charlie Kirk's assassination. Let's just put that on the table. Quick thought from you, Jonathan. I want to get to one of our colleagues who's live there. Quick last thought for now.
First Amendment be damned if our president gets killed, and we right now at this point we're at a war with a nation that is basically a giant terrorist unit. I think right now the Secret Service needs to stop being political, and if people want to have the president at an event, they need to be prepared not to bring anything into that event except the clothes on their back.
Yeah. All right, Jonathan Gill, appreciate it.
These people had breached a secure area.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All right, Jonathan, we'll get back to you in a moment.
Jonathan.
Let's go to our colleague Rob Schmidt. I believe he's there live joining us by phone. Okay, we're trying to get Rob by phone.
Yeah.
They told us that he was there. Okay, go ahead.
As you can imagine, the president of the White House Correspondents' Dinner, who was also sitting to the side of the president, who had said it was meaningful for them to be here, had come out just minutes ago, Ed, saying the program would resume. Listen, I think the ballroom's pretty much empty at this point. I think people were rattled, clearly, and they were locked down as this was happening after they got the president off the stage. People were inside that ballroom for a while, as our Mike Carter was saying. There was sort of some people.
Okay, here's some new. There's Major Garrett of CBS News. There's some. This is new video as it was unfolding. That's sort of in the middle where they were sort of the middle of the ballroom. They're looking at the stage here. Now you see what we had seen when we first came to air, which is essentially a SWAT team that was sitting in the wings and immediately took the president and first lady out and then secured that stage. Charles Marino, you know all about that. Let's bring you back, former top DHS official. You can see people were hitting the ground. There's Major Garrett on the left from CBS. He's sort of obscured, but he and others started going under tables, Charles, because they didn't know the extent of this threat. But what do you make there? And you could see the fear in people's eyes, Charles. The idea that anyone was able to get a gun or guns into, I've been in this ballroom, I'm sure you have many times. There are metal detectors everywhere. And the idea that someone slipped through or more people slipped through, Charles, is just beyond, I can't believe it.
No, Ed, you and I mean, we've known each other forever, right? As you part of the White House press pool and me as part of the President's detail and the Secret Service, we know what goes on here prior to these events. And I got to tell you, if there's a weapon that made itself inside that event, then there was a systemic failure on the part of the Secret Service to keep weapons out of this event. If this is something where somebody from the outside of that outer perimeter while shooting was attempting to breach that security, then the Secret Service did its job. Whether it was within earshot or not, as long as it did not get through that outer perimeter, then the system that was set in place worked. But if that weapon got outside that outer perimeter, then we've got a big problem here. And based on the reactions that we're seeing from people here, they either heard it or there was a systemic reaction that was going on based on somebody that heard it and others were reacting to that. So we don't just quite know whether or not there was a breach of security.
Right.
That threat was stopped where it needed to be stopped.
There's U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro giving updates as well on X there. I mean, trying to get information out because we are trying to get the latest information out. Reports are the shooter might be down. Reports are the shooter might be in custody. Yeah. So a lot of information coming out early on.
Let's bring in Rob Schmidt. I think, Charles, give us 1 minute here.
Yeah, thanks,
Rob,
Charles.
can you hear us now? He's joining us by phone from the Washington Hilton. Go ahead, Rob. What do you know?
Rob.
Hey, guys. Yeah, so I probably know a little less than most people at this point, but I saw a lot more. I just haven't had access to a lot of the information that's come out in probably the last 15 minutes. We're sitting here. Trump.
Okay. All right. It's very hard in that ballroom because there's so much.
Yeah.
It's in the basement, essentially, of the Hilton. If we get Rob back, and if, Rob, you hear us and you want to jump back in, we'll try to leave the line open. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Is that
I got
Rob?
bad service.
Yeah, we can hear you now, though, Rob.
Go ahead, Rob. Okay, it's bad service on a good night because we were there together 2 years ago, and it's in the basement, like I said. And now you've got all these people calling their newsrooms and calling loved ones to say, I'm okay. So the cell coverage is going to be tough. And then the Secret Service, obviously, does a lot of things when the president's around to make sure there's not communications that are harmful and whatnot, and just monitoring things.
There is going to be a lot of video. We're sharing every piece as it comes in. In fact, here's a new piece of video just dropping right now. Here they are, President Trump.
That almost looks like the president might have slipped or something as they were taking him out. Did you see that?
I did. Or he was already.
Or maybe they pushed him down to protect him.
Yeah.
It reminds you of Butler when Sean, his lead agent, who's now the head of the Secret Service, essentially jumped on him. And remember, they pulled the president out of his own shoes in Butler. And before they pulled him off stage, he said, "Get my shoe." Yeah. Because he was pulled out of his shoes.
But you know what? And then the iconic fist up, fight, fight, fight. You know, there are reports that Trump may be coming back to deliver the speech.
Yeah. I was checking Caroline Leavitt's feed a moment ago, and she had not made an official comment just yet. You saw the White House Correspondents Association president from CBS put her hand over her mouth, and we've shown that. And the First Lady looked like she was deeply concerned. I think she put her hand on her mouth.
Right.
Like, this is happening again. You're going to see it.
Right, here we go.
Right about here. Yeah.
So the video that's coming in, we here obviously are turning it the moment we get it in so you can kind of get up to the minute. But there's going to be a lot of video of this suspect. There's going to be a lot of video from the lobbies. There's going to be a lot of pieces here to put it all together. So The person obviously knew that they would be on camera, knew they would be on tape everywhere, walking into such a high-profile event. This is something that, as we mentioned, that the program had begun. It was about 30 minutes in, and maybe that is why people are still saying, because the word is President Trump may be coming back to deliver a speech.
Yeah, and I'm looking again.
And of course, Secret Service, a lot of this would be.
The White House has not yet put out an official statement about his safety or about whether he's coming back. We're obviously hoping for the best for everyone there.
Yeah.
I would think that if there was something more catastrophic, if anyone had been harmed, that they would have cleared this room by now.
I think so too.
Charles, do you want to jump in on that point? Because I'm trying to understand why everyone's still in this ballroom. Maybe they believe, obviously, that they've cleared the threat, but what else is going through your mind at this hour?
Well, I can tell you certainly who's not in that ballroom right now, because Bianca brought it up earlier, and she was exactly right for doing so. You've got the president, the vice president, members of the cabinet. This is a continuity of government nightmare. You have no fewer attendees here than you do at a State of the Union, for example.
Yeah.
So with respect to the continuity of government, it's very important here that the people you had in that room ensure that the government goes on uninterrupted. So they've all been removed here. They are not coming back. I certainly would not be recommending, having been in these positions before, that either the president, the vice president, or these cabinet members come back. The reason why, you don't know if this is just one of one or one of many. So you cannot allow the president or vice president and others back into this room until you've got a firm grasp of what's going on here.
Yeah,
and the
so
fact
true.
that this event was allowed to take place and that you had shots fired means that the Secret Service and other law enforcement officials are not going to have the answers as to whether or not there's more to come.
Yeah, by the way, Bloomberg is reporting that both the president and vice president have been, quote, evacuated from this event, which I think hits Charles' point directly, which is a really important point he just made, that it's not just the president. We obviously think about his safety first and the first lady, but continuity of government when you have the vice president in the room, presumably Secretary of War, other cabinet members, Treasury Secretary. Our own CEO, Chris Ruddy, is there with Rob Schmidt, who we mentioned. We're going to try to get him back on the phone. The Reverend Franklin Graham was at our table along with the British ambassador. Each media organization gets a table or tables. And they heard shots early on. Yeah, they heard shots early on and a commotion in the back of the room. And there was all kinds of security, obviously, as we've seen. Automatic rifles came into the room. This is from Chris Ruddy, our CEO, emailing in. Everybody was not clear what happened initially, but they did see from where they were sitting, as we've now seen from the video, the president was rushed off the podium. And they are still waiting at this moment direction from the Secret Service about exactly what's going to happen. So you see the video on the left. It's still an empty podium up there and an empty stage, and one would presume they're trying to figure out what happens next. Let's bring in John Schell. He is the former NYPD Chief of Department. John, it's always good to get your insight on a night when we're trying to sort out a major law enforcement security matter. John, what's your initial reaction to the video we're seeing and how this is playing out?
Yeah, this is really scary. This should be the safest room in the world right now. And the reports coming in that the shooter got to the magnetometer, and you heard the gunshots. You never want that in your perimeter. How does this happen? This cannot happen. So this is shocking. This is going to have to be a large review of what happened here. But this is too close. This will be the third time someone's trying to get at the president. We cannot, and I'm going to be a little critical here, we cannot have these mistakes.
Yep.
And thank God for the Secret Service that if it's the Secret Service at the magnetometer did their job. But how does this person get that close?
Yeah, and with the number of people in the room, as Charles Marino was just putting, it's almost like a designated survivor you need for the people who are in this room. It was Vice President J.D. Vance was there, members of the cabinet. John, being someone who is New York PD Chief Department, I mean, high-profile events. The city obviously has, after 9/11, had to fortify events. You know that there is a a sense of target as well.
Okay, hang on one
President
second.
Trump has
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
put
You
out
got
a
it?
Truth Social.
President says, quite an evening in Washington. Secret Service and law enforcement did a great job, fantastic job. He says they acted quickly and bravely. The shooter has been apprehended, the president says, suggesting he's alive. And I've recommended we, quote, let the show go on. We'll be entirely guided, though, by law enforcement. This from the president. They will make a decision shortly. Regardless of that decision, the evening will be much different than planned, and we'll just plain have to do it again.
Wow.
The president says, signs it.
Right.
John, your reaction to that?
He did a fantastic job.
You know, he's waiting for the law enforcement, and he's saying that if he comes back to the stage, maybe he's not going to be attacking the media as planned, that maybe this is going to have a different tone. But what would be your recommendation from a law enforcement standpoint? Should they even be thinking about bringing the president back?
I don't think so. There has to be a secondary search right now. You have to go beyond that perimeter, that building block. You got to layer this now. And conversely, with the event, you have to have what's called like a layer redundancy to security, many levels before you get to that door. And the Secret Service does a great job, and they did their job tonight. The criticism and what's scary about this, like I said, he got into the perimeter. You hearing gunshots while the president's on the stage. Looks like he was placing his order.
Yeah.
And
John,
this is not where we
John,
should be. But
and to your point, President Trump did say law enforcement, they did a fantastic job, acted quickly and bravely. That's the president 2 minutes ago. We're watching that
no
right
doubt
there
about
on the
it.
scene.
And
But what about possibly leaving something there? You know, the sweeps that need to be done, you know, the advance team. You know, maybe it wasn't somebody infiltrating tonight with a gun. Maybe it was left days before and picked up. I mean, there's so many things we don't know at this moment.
there's so many variables to this as to what was done a couple of days prior, a week before, the night before, 2 hours for the event.
Right.
And you're going to have to do this a second time now because you just can't take that chance. The president is tough as nails. Fight, fight, fight. We know it. He wants to get back on the stage and say, you know, you're not stopping us tonight. But he's got to listen to law enforcement. It's a tightrope here.
There's some new video here of outside the event. We're going to try to get this up here so you can see the chaos unfolding at the Washington Hilton.
Guns drawn, you know, law enforcement trying to get a handle on this situation. John, you know, we don't have the background you have. When the initial reports from our own CEO, Chris Ruddy, who's in the ballroom, was that he and others heard gunshots. That would presume that the gunshots were inside the hotel, not outside. The noise can carry. How would you assess? This is very limited information, but I think our White House correspondent Mike Carter said he believed from his own eyes that the shooter appeared to be roughly 40 yards from the stage.
30, 40 yards,
that
yeah.
seemed to suggest, obviously, they got inside. How close, with these kinds of weapons that are on the streets now, 30, 40 yards from the President of the United States, this is obviously unacceptable. Right. And God forbid this shooter had not been stopped, John. That is alarmingly close to the president, no?
So let's just say there's a failure at the magnetometer.
Yeah.
What was the next stop? Was it the double doors to the event? I couldn't even imagine to think. And I'll tell you what, those gunshots sounded loud on that video. And if you ever heard gunshots on top of you, they're loud, they travel far, and they don't discriminate who they hit. This is really scary. One of my questions in my mind, what was technology used outside this event? Did they have technology? If you had a long gun, I'm just speculating here. What technology did they have out there? How is this layered? There are a lot of questions I can answer tonight, but that's going to have to be a serious post-action review of what the hell went on here.
Right. Now, John, I was at Mar-a-Lago last night, and then Bianca mentioned that we were at a charity event together with other folks from Newsmax today between roughly noon and 3 p.m. And the president was there for a chunk of that time in another room near us. Yeah. And there are, to your point, I'm only bringing that up because there are drones, obviously, outside Mar-a-Lago. There's an I mean, I've been around the president for a decade or so. Every year, but particularly since Butler, obviously, you've been there, it's gotten heavier and heavier around him. So around that hotel, they had to have at least, one would presume, the same level of security to let him go into this ballroom. But John, somehow at least one gun got through, and I don't want to beat up the Secret Service, but we always look at the video of Butler and say, how did a shooter get on top of a roof this close to the president and hit him at least once. How did someone get within 40 yards of the president? What is going on?
Right, and let's be clear. Let's not beat up the Secret Service, because that layered redundancy they had today, whatever it was, one layer worked. And fortunately, it appears probably the last layer or close to it. But to your point, right, what was outside? Drones, AI cameras, license plate readers. We can go on, gun detection, magnetometers. How were they used? Were they used? They should never get to they should never get inside your perimeter. And this man always made it in.
Yeah, and John, I mean, now, again, President Trump putting out a truth post just minutes ago saying quite an evening. He does give credit to Secret Service and law enforcement. He said they acted quickly and bravely. You know, only this president would say, I want the show to go on. I mean, this was supposed to be, this was the first White House Correspondents' Dinner as president that he was attending to. He was going to, obviously, be there, get some jabs and the rest. This was supposed to be something that was historic in America. He said 250th. So here we have the president. We're putting it up on the screen so you can read it yourself. He has recommended that we let the show go on. Of course, he's the president who was pulled out off the stage of Butler saying fight, fight, fight. That is who he is to his core. He is going to let them decide.
Well, can I add one other thing? Which is the most important thing that I missed when I started reading that. The president's okay. He's truthing right now. Which, by the way, I didn't hear the CBS correspondent before say the president's safe, the vice president, the first lady. I get it. I'm not blaming her.
I'm not sure.
And
she had guardrails
Caroline
up,
Leavitt hadn't told us anything, and maybe the Secret Service said, do not say where the president is right now, John. But, I mean, look, first of all, the president of the United States is alive and well, John, and that is the most important thing we're learning right now, correct?
Yeah, obviously he's alive and well. It doesn't appear that the people in the room, you can see it right now, looks like there's really no sense of urgency. Obviously, they're talking about weapons, so it looks like the situation has been mitigated. But again, thank goodness for that Secret Service at that magnetometer. Thank God he didn't get in his room, because that would be a mass casualty situation, no doubt about it. And our president, our leader, is safe.
I'm just wondering, you know, at what point is this is becoming too normal in our country? Erica Kirk was also in the room there tonight. At what point you have journalists now ducking under because they're hearing shots? This was the very
this is a floor above the room where the shots
were. The ballroom. It's a floor higher.
This is kind of where the red carpet is, and now this could possibly be the White House pool, some of their video coming out, because it looked like there were reporters going out with cameras and stuff, trying to get a handle. Get back to the motorcade, because presumably the president don't know this for sure, but presumably they'd want to get him out and bring him back to the White House, which is within a mile. John, what about a little bit of history, which is that President Reagan
was shot.
Bianca mentioned earlier, was shot at this hotel, not at a correspondence center, but he had delivered a speech, I think, to a union early in his presidency. Obviously survived it. Yeah, and the story goes, John, that he was pushed into the presidential limo, and they started heading to the White House, because again, it's only a mile or so away. And one of the Secret Service agents noticed, he kept asking the president, are you okay? And I believe he saw blood coming out of his mouth, I think, or saw blood on his shirt, and said, do not go to the White House, go to George Washington University Hospital, and rerouted that motorcade. And they later said, the doctors, that if he had not gone to the hospital right away, John, Ronald Reagan would have been dead. He would not have made it, because they didn't know that he had been hit initially. But this agent figured that out, John. It shows the kind of work that law enforcement like you do to mitigate a situation and deal with it.
Remember that day like it was yesterday? I'm playing the video in my head as you were just talking about it. And the Secret Service and law enforcement, you know, we're built from the same DNA. We protect and serve. We can't be wrong. We always have to be right. And sometimes that's not the case, but not by lack of effort. But we're the last line of defense between good and evil, and we always have to stand tall. And tonight they did that.
And there is a lot of evil. But I just wanted to finish my point is that, you know, people are, you know, obviously there's reporters there, so they're getting information. They're doing live shots. You can see, you know, the phone is now, you know, going Zoom, going live from there. But it just seems like, at what point are we in the nation where guns, there's a gun 40 feet from the president, 40 yards, they're under the table, John, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, we're going to go back, we're going to have a meal. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we need to make a bigger, discussion point of this is not normal. We cannot accept this type of violence. There, you see Pete Hegseth, one of the cabinet members, some new video here walking out after the incident. But John, I mean, it just underscores that we're dealing with another assassination attempt against President Trump. And I'm looking at the crowd here tonight. This is not business as usual.
No, and you got to watch the rhetoric is horrible. You see it every day. We got to call a timeout here. The media's got to call a timeout here. And you want to discuss issues and critique issues by all means. But when you start talking about violent
Dr.
rhetoric,
Oz there.
Yeah.
Pardon me, there's Dr. Oz being taken out. It looked like Scott Bessent right there. And so while there are journalists and others, guests, presumably still in the ballroom, moments ago, you can see some of the video, the cabinet and other officials like Dr. Oz were being told to go home.
This is a live shot outside,
yeah.
and it doesn't look like those metal barricades are up where a few years ago they were. I don't know if they've been taken down, but that street kind of looks. Remember last?
Yeah, so there's the Hilton in the center of the screen. This is
right
Connecticut Avenue in Washington. It runs right basically to the White House. John, go ahead. Did you want to say something?
I tell you what I'm doing right now as an incident commander. I'm giving myself a nice buffer of maybe a couple blocks in every direction.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got my dogs out there sniffing every car. I'm checking 911 calls. I got my drones up. I got every piece of apparatus that I have in my toolbox out there right now, making sure when these people leave, there isn't a secondary nefarious actor out there or a bomb. And I don't want to be hyperbolic here, but that's the way you have to think of these situations. I'd rather start at level 10 and come down than to be chasing myself an hour later.
Yeah, that's why I'm still wondering why there's this conversation about bringing the president back. I get the idea of not letting protesters or shooters or attempted assassins win, quote unquote. But when you're saying it's a 10 and you want to make sure you're checking 911 calls, you've got drones. Why in the world, John, would they even consider bringing the commander in chief back other than optics? I mean, you want this president to be safe, right?
Absolutely. At this point, again, as you're talking, I'm thinking this can't go on. I know they want to stand tall, and I get it, and I respect that. But let's shut this down tonight. Let's do it another night, and let's make sure everyone's safe and get them home. And that's what I would do.
John, John Schell, we appreciate your insight. If you can stand by, we know it's a Saturday night. You may have other things on the calendar. Charles Marino's still here, the former top DHS official. When you hear John talking, you both speak the same language, Charles, of presidential succession and making sure you're getting cabinet secretaries out of there. We just saw the Treasury Secretary. We saw the Secretary of War leaving this ballroom, presumably leaving the hotel altogether. And then John's point about a perimeter around the hotel. You have to make sure, Charles, obviously, and there's okay, it's not a full motorcade, it's just one vehicle leaving. I don't want to exaggerate it. But Charles, you got to make sure that there's not other stuff going on outside, correct?
No, that's right. That's back to my previous point. You don't know that this is the one lone attack or if there's more to come here. So John hits it exactly right. It's more of a succession of attacks. Sometimes you anticipate as an adversary getting people to move to then hit them again and again and again. And so that's something that needs to come into the equation here for law enforcement officials. What I can tell you is we're seeing a lot of motorcades speed away. You won't see any of them come back. There may be a conversation going on right now between the president and the Secret Service. Okay. I anticipate that conversation is going to be short-lived because the office of the presidency is much more than the person that's occupying the position right now. And the president is very likely being advised of that right now by the director of the Secret Service. I don't expect that he or the vice president or any of these cabinet secretaries are going to be allowed to come back based on the events of the continuity of government that we previously spoke about. It cannot happen.
We're also hearing, we're awaiting some video potentially of the shooter.
The shooter.
So
I also want to mention we've called out dangerous rhetoric on the left, and rightly so. A few moments ago, Chuck Schumer, the Senate Democrat leader, did post this. I am closely monitoring the unfolding situation at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I'm grateful for the quick response of law enforcement and am praying everyone remains safe. He doesn't suggest he was there, but is obviously speaking well of everyone there. So we just add that from Chuck Schumer.
That's good.
Charles, can you answer the question as well as someone, DHS is the department, obviously, that has the Secret Service as one of the agencies under it, just like ICE and Customs and Border Patrol is restructured. Obviously, after 9/11 and other events, it used to be underneath the Treasury Department, as I recall. The Department of Homeland Security was created after 9/11. Charles, I know Sean Curran. He was the lead agent there in Butler, Pennsylvania, a trained professional. There's a motorcade on the left side there, by the way, that's larger than the one we saw before. Doesn't look like the presidential one, but you can see all kinds of vehicles leaving. Charles, Sean Curran was put in charge of the Secret Service by this president because he trusts him, longtime Secret Service veteran, to kind of fix what was broken within this agency. I'm not saying one incident proves it's still broken, but Charles, if I'm the commander-in-chief, I'm saying, what's going on?
Yeah, I'm telling you, Secretary Mullen is fully engaged right now based on this incident, the Secret Service being one of the essential components under the Department of Homeland Security. So the Secretary is going to be looking for answers, for information about exactly how this unfolded and was allowed to take place here, given the vast amount of resources that are dedicated to the White House Correspondents.
Okay, good point.
Now, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, as we know, is not designated as a national special security event, as we see the designation being given to the inauguration or the State of
or Super Bowl or something.
Right.
Charles,
or
let me
even
interrupt.
now the certification of the elections. So
Charles.
Going forward, this is something that Secretary Mullen is going to have to explore and talk to the Secret Service about. And
raise the level.
As we know, Ed and Bianca, after Butler, Pennsylvania, a lot of focus has been given to the Secret Service by both Secretary Nolan and Secretary Mullen.
Pardon me, but that picture, Charles, that picture that we're seeing live, the podium, our staff did a great job here. Chris noticed that the presidential seal has been taken off what they call the goose. It's the large blue podium. That seal is only on the podium when the president is going to speak, Charles. You know that from doing events like this. That tells us they're not anticipating the president coming back.
And maybe he does a phone call. We also want to update you. The FBI Washington field office has posted their National Capital Response Squad has responded. So you've got the FBI there as well, investigating all this. There's also a report that President Trump was pulled off the stage, and we saw that, but he was also put in a hall down the room as a hold as they were making sure
you don't
that there
want
were
to rush
no
him
other
out
threats
into another situation.
And while he was there, he was saying, I would like to be able to continue on, but evacuate to a
we'll get
hold
to
for a
Mike Carter
while.
in a second, but hold on. We have a statement now from the Secret Service for the first time. Quote, the U.S. Secret Service, in coordination with the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, is investigating a shooting incident, so they're confirming what we suspected. It was a shooting near the main magnetometer screening area at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. The President and the First Lady are safe among all protectees. One individual is in custody, and there's the image that you mentioned, Bianca. It looks like our first glimpse of the suspect. Initial reports said he may have been taken down and killed. Now the Secret Service is saying he or she is in custody. It says an individual. The condition of those involved is not yet known, and law enforcement is actively assessing the situation. So, Charles, before we get to Mike Carter, what do you read from that? So the President and First Lady are safe, one individual in custody. The condition of those involved is not yet known.
Hang on, we have an update here from the White House Correspondents' President again, CBS. Let's pipe in her audio. Weiju Jiang.
And law enforcement has requested that we leave the premises consistent with protocol. And he wanted to emphasize that nobody was hurt. He and the First Lady, the cabinet, everybody's safe. The president will be having a press briefing at the White House in 30 minutes. That is not a joke. And He insists that we will reschedule this event in the next 30 days, and that he wanted to do it tonight. He wanted to continue despite the news, but has to follow security protocol. I said earlier tonight that journalism is a public service because when there is an emergency, we run to the crisis, not away from it. And on a night when we are thinking about the freedoms in the First Amendment, we must also think about how fragile they are. I saw all of you reporting, and that's what we do. So, thank God everybody is safe, and thank you for coming together tonight. We will do this again. Thank you.
Taking the stage.
Yeah.
Thank God the president is safe. I mean, let's just underscore that.
Yeah.
So that's the White House Correspondents President there, Weijia Jiang. So the president's going to have a news conference in 30 minutes. It is 9:41 here on the East Coast, Ed. We would have been about 10 minutes into his comments.
Yeah.
Instead, this is unfolded in a manner that obviously has been disturbing. The president is safe. He wanted everyone to know that he will have a news conference. They're going to reschedule this. But a night that was supposed to be full of revelry, maybe not so much for the press, but really kind of the last laugh for the president, has taken a very serious change of tone here as we wonder what went wrong. Why was a shooter able to access the Hilton ballroom this evening? And there are images of that shooter in custody. He is not dead. The Secret Service, of course, putting out a statement saying just moments ago the individual in custody and the condition is not yet known.
Okay, let's get back to the ballroom or the area around there. I think our White House correspondent Mike Carter is back on the phone. Mike, what else do you know? Are you and others heading to the White House for this briefing with the president? Mike? Okay, it just dropped, but we have Bo Dietl. He's a member of the President's Homeland Security Advisory Council, NYPD veteran, of course. Bo, always good to talk to you. Difficult night, obviously, but we appreciate your insight. Welcome, Ed and Bianca here. Your reaction to what we're seeing unfolding, pretty shocking.
I was shocking. Shocking is not the word. I just watched it all in action. I've been around a lot of presidential. I did some presidential security for some of the conventions and all that. And this is one of the most secure locations with all the cabinet members there. I don't know how in the hell somebody could get into that perimeter. You should have gone through about 3 or 4 perimeters before they could get to that escalator thing. How that person was able to get up there with a gun, that is going to be a big question, unless something was hidden somewhere and no one discovered it, and that's what happened.
Yeah, the sweep, you know, the advance team, right? If it was left a few days before. Or
yeah,
a
you know,
day.
and also, you know, me as a retired detective, I'm also on the Homeland Security Advisory Council with the president. I can't get around there with a gun. I mean, they won't allow me to come near there where the president is, even when I'm retired law enforcement and I'm currently on the Homeland Security Advisory Council.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is the security side, what I did see was there was a lot of square badge security guards there. I don't understand why they would have them in an area where there was so many important people like that. That should have been a lot more security, Secret Service, Homeland Security. But I saw security guards there, which are not even armed, and I don't understand who did the security on this.
If we have the picture outside too of the exterior of the Hilton too, there's been some question about maybe even just not having anything within blocks of this, and really having a wider perimeter to make it even harder and more difficult to be accessed from the street, from the onset here, Bo.
Yeah, but we all remember the inauguration.
Yeah.
I mean, we were a lot of. I was
miles.
there. You had to walk miles to get to the damn place. And I mean, this to me was one of the most important. This would have been sent to target. This thing should have been more secure. I'm very surprised. And the Secret Service is the ones that have to handle that. And they got to get, when they do things like this, they got to realize in this time and age, You know, this is something where people look at, and that has to be secure. We must secure our president and our cabinet officials. I didn't like what I saw with all these. I call them. I have a security guard company, but I wouldn't think of putting my security guards guarding where the president is there. I would only have law enforcement people there. It looked very lax when I was looking on the TV as far as where the escalator was, and they had unarmed security guards there, which to me is ridiculous.
Well, President Trump has been truthing, and there is an update now. We want to share it with you right here live. If you're just joining us, President Trump saying law enforcement has requested that we leave the premises consistent with protocol, which we will do immediately. I will be giving a press conference in 30 minutes from the White House press briefing room. The First Lady plus the Vice President and all cabinet members are in perfect condition.
Right.
We will be speaking to you in a half an hour. I have spoken with all the representatives in charge of the event, and we will be rescheduling within 30 days. Bo, he wants to do it. He wants to have it rescheduled. Obviously, President Trump is, he's a fighter. We're looking here, right here. This is the video of
there it
the
is,
president.
the beast.
There's the beast as they were leaving. So a White House Correspondents' Dinner has now turned into an attempted assassination on the president's life, and now a White House press briefing within the turn of several hours.
Top of the hour, we should hear from him.
This is America in our 250th year. We deserve, obviously, to have more sanity here, Bo. This is hard to watch.
And we have a lot more things happening for the 250th anniversary.
Yep.
And we have the FIFA Cup. We have a lot of things going on. And instead of this country pulling together and stop with this freeze of Homeland Security, there's a lot of security people that are now not being paid. We've got to stop the nonsense and secure our country. And all these damn Democrats that vote against it, this is tragedy in the making. We have to have all the security that we can have to protect our president and our country.
You know, we mentioned you sit on the President's Homeland Security Advisory Council. You make an important point about the Democrats in the House and Senate who have held up some of this DHS money, Department of Homeland Security, in the middle of a war, and somehow have gotten away with it because the money still has not appeared weeks later. So that's on the table. But also I would note at the beginning of this war in Iran, there were several, not just one. There was the Michigan terror situation. Thankfully, the kids at that synagogue were not harmed. Yes. There was multiple people killed in a terror incident, guy wearing an Iran T-shirt in Austin, Texas, right? Multiple people shot and killed. There was another one in Virginia, Old Dominion University.
Yeah, right.
And so react to that, but
also someone was let out of prison early. It was
someone that a liberal judge let out. But thankfully, we haven't had another incident I can recall, and we thank God for that. But this threat is there.
Yeah, and you know, and what I worry about is the sleeper cells that are very religious fanatics, and they want to kill Americans, and that's going to happen. Believe me, and they're going to go for body count. 9/11, I was down there. I don't forget that, and they're coming back. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I think that we should tighten our security. We should stop this nonsense. Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, will you man up and stop the bull crap? And let's get our Homeland Security funded, and let's get more security on there. We're going to use a lot of people on this feed, but that 250th anniversary, I'm heading up some security stuff for different events. You know what? I am worried. I put armed guys on there. I don't want unarmed guys around any kind of an event that's going to have the possibility of having people come there with firearms.
Yeah, good point. Obviously, this room is clearing out now here at the Washington ballroom, Hilton, because they know the event is over.
If you're just joining us, the president and the first lady have been taken away from there. They're safe and sound. The vice president, also other cabinet members, thank God, as you say. And the president, as you see on the screen, will hold a news conference approximately 10 p.m. Eastern. Bo, I mentioned this with another guest a few moments ago, and again, I bring it back to you being on this advisory council nominated, appointed by the president. What kind of advice might you and others on that council, and we're showing video, by the way, if you're just joining us on the left side of, boy, this is over an hour, more than an hour ago, where the president and first lady first heard a gunshot or gunshots. I still don't, we haven't gotten a handle from the Secret Service if it was multiple shots.
No, we
and the
have not.
CBS correspondent put her hand on her mouth in horror at the idea that this was happening again. Bo, people still watch the video of Butler and say, how did someone get on a roof that close to the president when snipers are around and everything else?
Minutes of warning.
And now someone's got a gun. Our correspondent said it might have been, these are initial reports, about 40 yards from the president. How is the secret? They're not the only law enforcement agency. I don't want to but they have to protect this president. And this is happening. One time is too many, Bo.
Do you know that Secret Service is under this freeze stuff? They're under Homeland Security. This is part of it. And these Democrats don't want to open it up. And again, this was probably should have been the most secure room in the world, with this all happening, with the whole cabinet there. And I really, from just watching from TV, I didn't understand why they had these security guards where there should have been Secret Service or even Homeland Security guys there.
So we want to play U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C., Jeanine Pirro, who was also in the room and posted this video just minutes ago to X. Let's watch this together here.
I'm at the Washington Hilton. I've been taken out of the main ballroom after the sound of the shots fired. The Secret Service is now in charge of this building, this hotel. I just spoke to Mayor Muriel Bowser. She is on her way, and Chief Jeffrey Carroll is on his way. He will be in charge as soon as he gets here.
FBI Washington field office also at the scene here. President Trump has to be able to trust that he has the Secret Service that is going to keep him safe. I mean, this is a breakdown, obviously, tonight of, again, it's epic proportions because it is another time that we are here reporting this too close of a call. But, Bo, I mean, what does it take? I mean, we've had changes at the top. We've had changes. Is it changes in training? What is it going to take?
I'll be very honest with you. I was in the White House 6 weeks ago before we went into Iran. I was with the president, and who come walking out of the Oval Office was Mandami. And I told him, "What the hell are you doing here?" I said, "Leave the cops alone." And I went in and talked to the president about some issues with the Homeland Security. I'm supposed to go back. I spoke a couple of weeks ago with Mark Wayne Mullen, the new head of Homeland Security. I have all intentions of meeting in Washington in the very near future. But this is something where, look, with my experience of my life, of being around security my whole life, this is something waiting to happen. And if we don't be proactive, we're going to say, how did it happen? And it's right in our face, just by the grace of God, that our president has survived these different attacks on him. But they're still going to come. And not just that, I'm talking about our home front now. They have freeze on Homeland Security. How dare you damn Democrats? You freeze so people will die. And when the attacks start occurring in our cities or on these cells, people are going to say, "Oh, how come we had no intelligence? How come we didn't know about it?" It's coming, and we have to deal with it. We must get tough. Stop the politics, and let's start putting the money where it belongs and get stronger Homeland Security, stronger Secret Service, stronger protection for our people, and start supporting the cops instead of turning it against them.
Bo Dietl, thank you. And yes, thanks to God. Yes, that was
It's been more than It's been more than 70 days, by the way, to Bo's point. Bo, thank you, that the Department of Homeland Security has not been fully funded. Our colleague, Newsmax host Greta Van Susteren, was at this event. I believe she's on the phone. Greta, what do you know at this hour?
Ed, you've been to these dinners 100 times. You know what they're like. They're about 1,500 or 2,000 people in a room, and everyone's sitting around talking, and all of a sudden, everyone starts screaming, under the table, under the table, under the table. Some people heard shots. I actually thought they were like someone dropped a tray or something, and people went running down the aisle. But everybody is literally under the table. Chris Ruddy, who was at our table, our CEO, is telling people to get down, get down. And it was just terrifying because, this is the one night a year, as you know, Ed, having been to these 1,000 times. I've added, first I said 100, now I said you've been to 1,000. But anyway, is that people are talking and laughing. I talked to Tulsi Gabbard, who was there right before, about 10 minutes before it happened. She's, of course, their Director of National Intelligence. Janine Perot, the U.S. Attorney here, was there. Linda McMahon, Secretary of Education. Robert F. Kennedy, HHS. Senators. Reverend Franklin Graham was there. I mean, there were a lot of people whose names everybody knows that they were all there, and it's the one night a year where people in the media sort of talk to each other and enjoy the people we cover. There's a lot of anticipation going into this one. Of course, the president's not fond of the media. A lot of people in the media aren't fond of the president. So, I mean, so there's some chatter about that. And of course, obviously, none of us expect this. But I will say, Ed, this was the weird part. There was almost no security. You come in and they say, tickets, tickets. You flash a ticket up. You could have gotten one printed last week identically, or you could have flashed up a piece of blank paper, and then you go through the metal detector. And of course, there have been some people I've heard complain that they didn't check the bags much. Obviously, this person didn't get into the. Oh no! Don't go this. They went the wrong direction. I'm sorry. But anyway, the traffic here and the security is just out of control. It's
Greta,
out of control.
Can I just say one quick thing, which is the White House pool, to your point about the security and the traffic. The White House pool follows the president everywhere. They'd be in a motorcade like the one we're seeing on our screen. The White House pool puts out notes, and and the bottom line is one of the reporters in that pool, and our team has just put it out, said, quote, "We are flying back to the White House, fastest motorcade I've ever seen," meaning they were trying to get this president back to the White House. Yeah.
They you know how the president and the vice president and remember the other people, member of the White House board, are sitting up on the dais. It was like they just vacuumed it all of a sudden. They were gone. They wiped them right out of the room while the rest of us went under the table. They were gone in a split second, and I'm sure they got into the motorcade and they flew back to the White House so fast. I mean, when you look up, the dais was completely empty, totally.
Yeah.
They evacuated so fast.
Yeah, Greta, Bianca here. What was the mood like? I mean, I know you know a lot of the journalists in the room too, and they were sort of leading up to it, depending on what type of outlet you worked for, what they thought tonight would or wouldn't be. But this was supposed to be President Trump's first White House Correspondents' Dinner. He was going to have some fun. Caroline Leavitt, says, get some jabs in. After this happened, the seriousness of it obviously sets in for everyone. Can you just give us sort of the mood, the color with some of the folks, maybe not the biggest Trump fans there?
A lot of people jumped into their jobs and started reporting, making phone calls, and I guess doing phoners like I'm doing with you right now. They were doing that. A lot of people were rattled. Some people, people react to a crisis and terror differently. Some people are like, almost, acting quite normal. But there wasn't anyone there who wasn't disturbed. It's just how you manifest your disturbance and the terror of it.
Yes.
But to me, you don't go into a room, into a big social event, and expect that the next thing you know is they're going to evacuate the dais so fast that your head's spinning, like you can't even see them leave, and everybody else is under the table. I mean, I'm under the table. I'm sitting under the table with the British ambassador to the United States, who's brand new ambassador, and we had been talking about King Charles and Camilla arriving on Monday, and next thing I know is I'm under the table with him. My husband's across the table; he's under the table as well. Next to and he was next to Carrie Lake. I hear Chris Ruddy tell Franklin Graham, get down, because Franklin was the last one down at our table. So, I mean, it was just pandemonium.
Yeah.
There's some video now coming in of the takedown of the shooter. If you stand by, if you have to go, Greta, tell us, but it was playing out on the screen. And this might look like the aftermath of the takedown. Yeah, because the shooter appears to be on the ground, Bianca, obviously. So it's our first,
I'll tell you, Ed,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Ed, you just cannot underestimate how bad the traffic was to get into the place, and how terrible the security was once you open the door. I mean, the traffic wasn't security. The traffic was just sort of a mess with a bunch of police cars stopping. Anybody could have walked in there.
Greta,
Anybody could have.
So the one thing that we're seeing now is that there appeared to be like a sheet or a towel over this shooter, and he has no shirt on. I don't know if he was a protester, had the shirt off, if law enforcement ripped his shirt off to see if he had a bomb on him, or what may have transpired. All that's going to come out, obviously, and we're going to hear from the President of the United States live, pardon me, any moment now from the White House briefing room. And oh, by the way, Greta, there's one other piece of information, which is when you read that White House pool note that says we are flying back to the White House, fastest motorcade I've ever been in, they say the motorcade was rolling at 9:46, which is only 14 minutes ago. Why is that important? Bianca, that tells us the president was still at the hotel. He did not.
Oh, yeah, they probably held him there.
They had him in a holding room.
Held him there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you, they probably did hold him there, Ed, because when we, first of all, it was raining. We're all walking in the raining to this building, and that's not raining now, but you could hear protesters. I said it sounded like protesters on the other side of the hotel. So, but that's Washington. I mean, we like the First Amendment. We're proud of the First Amendment. People protest even when you don't like it. We're proud of it. We don't like shootings. We don't like terrorism. We don't like anything like that. So it's people that's sort of ordinary. That was the only thing that was abnormal that I thought was the lack of security.
Yeah, well, that is abnormal. In the wake of where we are, there's a war in Iran. This is now a question we keep asking all our guests, Greta, is how is this happening? How is this allowed to happen again and again? And no one seems to really be able to answer that. The failures that they're going to continue
I guess
time
the flip
after
side
time.
is we don't want to live in a police state either.
Mm-hmm.
You can't shut. This is a hotel, and you can't shut it down. But I think in some ways I suspect the rain was part of a problem getting people into the building.
Yeah.
Because it was raining. It was be my guess. Because it's free. It was also cold.
Right.
And get everybody cold, and getting all these people into the building, and people who hadn't seen each other in a long time, where people were stopping to talk to each other. I talked to John Fetterman for a long time outside. I mean, there's just so much activity going on. People these are all the people in Washington who we see on the news every day, whether it's reporters, senators, cabinet officers, or in this case, the president, the vice president was there, and the first lady.
Well, the most important information seems like not just the president and first lady, but yourself and our CEO and all the reporters and guests are safe, it appears. The Secret Service statement did not say that anybody was harmed somehow, thankfully. Greta, thanks for that incredible information.
I guess rescheduling for within 30 days. That's the president's wish.
He wants to get back to it.
Have this
Greta,
night
stand
again.
by if you can.
Thank you, Greta,
live
so
look at the
much.
White House, where the President of the United States will be addressing the reporters, but addressing the nation really any moment now. We've crossed a new hour here, just past 10 p.m. Eastern, here on Newsmax. Ed Henry and Bianca De La Garza, let's reset. We were getting ready to go to air at about 9 p.m. Eastern, and just after 8:30 or so, 8:40, some of our team started noticing that there was activity on the stage where the president and first lady had just been seated. We were going to come to air not while they were sitting down, but when they started speaking and the dinner started going. And we started racing around and getting out of tape so that we could be live, because there was some incident and all we could see was that the president was rushed off the stage. We didn't know his status. We didn't know if he and the first lady were safe because they were taken away. There were reports of gunshots, and there were almost a SWAT team from the U.S. Secret Service. There's the moment on the left that I'm describing. We initially, since we were not live at that second, were told about it and jumped into action here, because within a couple of minutes of what you see on the left, the right side is a live look, a SWAT team basically from the U.S. Secret Service was on that stage, and you can see some of them running through the halls. This is the Washington Hilton. This is where Ronald Reagan was shot. Now there's the SWAT team I mentioned on the left. When the president's on the golf course now these days, by the way, there are teams like that with helmets, with masks, with cameras. There are drones. When he is anywhere now, so one would presume they had some of that outside the hotel as well. We still don't know how many shots, but it has been confirmed to be a quote-unquote shooting by the U.S. Secret Service, Bianca. And again, their statement doesn't say that anyone's been harmed. The president himself has been on Truth Social saying he's safe. Yeah. I just want to bring in John Nance, because we may hear from the president any moment. We'll have to interrupt you, John. But John is a retired FBI supervisory special agent. We always appreciate your insight. Before we get the president, what do you make of what has unfolded tonight, John?
Well, I think the primary concern was this individual a lone wolf, or is there some kind of coordinated effort here? And I know that the FBI is going to be working very, very diligently to get to the bottom of that question as quickly as possible. because if there are foreign actors that are involved, we're going to want to know this, especially given the geopolitical environment that we're in, but also the political environment. I don't want to jump the gun, so to speak, but we're in a political environment where Trump is constantly being called a king or a Nazi or whatever. So it's a very, very heated environment. And it seems that security really did its job.
John,
I mean, from what? Sure.
We know that the FBI field office from Washington is there along with Secret Service. President Trump, latest is that the pool has returned to the White House.
And there's the White House podium on the left. So
President Trump to address the world, really, right there from, you see, the White House podium. There is a report coming in on the New York Post, John. I want to get your perspective on this. There is somebody who says they were there as a volunteer at the dinner, and they say this suspected gunman appeared to assemble a long weapon in a lightly monitored area near a terrace-level entrance before opening fire and rushing towards the ballroom. This is a volunteer telling this to the New York Post. Helen Mabus from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. She said there's this makeshift room near the entrance where bar carts were being stored, where there was no security at the time. No security at the time.
what's your reaction, John? Now, this is an unconfirmed report. It's in the New York Post, but someone got a weapon in there. How could that happen when everybody in the world knew the president would be there and the Secret Service has known this event has been on the books for a year? They do it a year in advance. Now, the president only confirmed his attendance there in the last month or two, but they've had a lot of time to plan, John.
I mean,
yeah, no, I agree. If that's what occurred, that is a tremendous problem. Now, I've heard conflicting reports. I've heard that this individual rushed a magnetometer station. If that's correct, and uniformed Secret Service engaged this individual, then that's what they were supposed to do. That's what they were there for. So that's the genesis of the origin of my statement with regard to, it seems like security did its job. Now, if this is true that this individual entered some portion of the building that was not secured, that is of great concern, and that question will have to be resolved. And the Secret Service, I'm sure, will conduct their investigation from a security perspective while the FBI conducts its national security.
What's amazing, too, is President Trump wants this rescheduled. So everything we're looking at here, President Trump says within 30 days. Now, of course, a lot can change between that actually happening, but President Trump has obviously wanted this opportunity to have this dinner. Is not going to let a gunman who's now in custody change that. It has changed things dramatically tonight. A lot of different reports. Again, yeah, we'll see if this report about a makeshift room. But we have heard from several people that security felt very lax upon entry. When Ed and I attended together 2 years ago, there were people outside, but there was a big barrier, and they were coming up. It was right after October 7th, and they had red, handprints, and they were coming up trying to scare people. They were very antagonistic.
Anti-Israel protesters.
They wanted to tussle, and they had their cameras in your face. They were ready. So I don't know tonight if someone's rushing a magnetometer. I mean, this potentially, this is the type of climate that these people are out there. They are looking for a fight, and if you are a member of the media in this room, they are definitely out there trying to be aggressive and get in. So I mean, there could have been. Who knows within these large crowds. So just talk to us about now with President Trump going to address the nation. How much do you think he can share? I mean, obviously there's things he's not going to be able to share about what he's being told. But he's the most transparent president we've ever had. He wants people to see him, to hear him, to know he looks good. Who knows? He might even have some members of his cabinet out there with him tonight.
Yeah, to
say
show
this is
force.
unacceptable.
Go ahead, John.
Well, you have to admire Trump's courage. I mean, I haven't seen this kind of fearlessness in the face of danger in a very, very long time. I mean, unfortunately, Trump has been subjected to dangerous situations that he should not have been subjected to. And I think that we're going to hear everything that Trump can tell us in these very, very early stages.
Yeah.
Investigation.
John, there's one piece of information I'm just noticing came over the Reuters wire a couple moments ago while we were talking, so I'm catching up here. An FBI official, that's the agency you used to work at, obviously, is telling Reuters that the suspect fired initially at a Secret Service agent. That would presume, because the Secret Service statement, and this is now the suspect that was taken down, the Secret Service statement first said that it happened near one of the main magnetometers on the way in, where Secret Service would be manning those X-ray and metal detectors. This FBI official is adding the suspect fired at a Secret Service agent, presumably at that magnetometer, and that the agent is fine. I bring that up, John, because what does that tell us? That the initial security may have worked, obviously, in the sense that if the gun, it shouldn't have been in this unsecured room. Maybe the guy tried to assemble it. We're going to find that out. But then as he tried to come through, the bottom line is he fired at a Secret Service agent to try to get in the ballroom, and either missed or was stopped, and then they took him to the ground. John, real quick on that, and then we're going to move on.
Well, what that tells me is this seems to me at first blush to be more of a self-radicalized individual, because bum rushing the magnetometers with armed, uniformed Secret Service and plainclothes Secret Service does not seem like a very good idea. So this tells me, at least initially, that this individual does not strike me as someone who is trained or had a very thorough plan in mind.
Yeah, clearly. John Nance, it is good to have you. Certainly appreciate your perspective, retired FBI supervisory special agent. Thank you so much for joining us. I believe we still have Rob Schmidt, who was in the room as the shots were fired, and we now have established a connection with him again. Rob, can you hear us? Ed and Bianca here in the studio. All right, so just walk us through what went down, how it unfolded from your perspective there inside the Hilton this evening.
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, we're all in there. It's a big room. It's down like underneath the Hilton Hotel, so you're down like 2 floors down. The internet's terrible. You can't get you can't get service. It makes it complicated. And we're sitting there, and you got music playing, a lot of people talking. All of a sudden, you just hear like bang, 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 and you just knew it was gunshots. And everybody was a little confused. Some people maybe thought it was a band or something like that. And then Secret Service just going nuts. They run toward Trump. We're about 75 yards from at our table, and they pull him out immediately. They start pulling everybody else out, and you couldn't really. It was hard because you're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. You're trying to look for the guy, and the guy never obviously got into the actual ballroom that we were in. I don't know how. I'm still trying to figure out how close they were, because I couldn't really get any information as it was happening. I just got out of there.
Yeah.
But it was loud enough that you knew he was reasonably close. The gunfire, I think most of it was probably just Secret Service taking him down, or maybe he did fire. I'm not sure, and it sounds like he might still be alive, which is.
Yeah, Rob, Reuters is reporting, pardon me, that the gunman allegedly fired at a Secret Service agent. So there was at least one shot, missed that agent. And then I think, to your point, Rob, absolutely, then the Secret Service starts bang, bang. And he's alive, though. We have pictures, we have video of this suspect on the ground, handcuffs behind his back, no shirt, but appears to be alive. Pick it up there.
Yeah, that's why I just saw one still image that I saw on Twitter as I've been getting out of there. But I mean, it's just it's crazy. I mean, you're sitting in there, and the funny thing is we were walking in, and I'm walking in with this buddy of mine, a Bedminster guy, and we got our tickets out, and they're just looking at these tickets like you're walking into a book signing, at Walden Books, and you're just like, what the hell? Like this is it? And then we're all the way in the hotel now, and we're getting deep into the hotel, and still nobody's even checked us out. Nobody cares. Like anybody can just walk in, anybody can walk out. You get all the way down, like 1 floor down, and you finally see, the little airport security thing for Secret Service. And you're like, okay, here we finally go. But it just felt really lax. It felt really it felt like a secretary was there and not Trump.
Yeah.
It felt like, Dr. Oz was speaking. That's how it felt to me.
And
I'm
Dr.
like,
Oz
this is just weird.
Was there. Members of the cabinet were there. I mean, President Trump and the First Lady, Vice President Vance also there.
The
on
Vice
the
was
stage.
there. I mean, we walked in right behind Kennedy and his wife, and then I watched as Kennedy was rushed out. Just not too long after that, because I got there kind of late.
Yeah,
here's
they're pulling Vance off. We're watching video of them.
We just got new video
president
on the other side of the stage. So the president was, when you're looking at the stage on the left side, as you know, the vice president on the right side. We've just got new video.
Ways.
Vice president was rushed out there as quickly as the president, Rob.
Right. Yeah, they moved. It was really quick. I mean, as soon as I was trying to get my phone up, and I just got Weijia Jiang, who's like the head of the association. I got them moving her out. I missed Trump getting moved out by a few seconds, but it's all on television. You've seen it anyway. But I was just trying to get the shot. Everybody was under their tables, like ducked down. Like you just can't. It's like, how many times are they going to try and kill this guy? I mean, it's just. I mean, the tolerant left.
Horrible.
Welcome to it. I mean, it's like, how many times are they going to try and do this? It's just crazy.
Yeah.
You know, Rob, tonight was supposed to be his first White House Correspondents' dinner that he attended, kind of, you know, to give the press, you know, after not going for so many years. He says he's going to reschedule it. You know, we know that there are a lot of people in that room, you know, who obviously not the biggest Trump fans. Your final thoughts here tonight, in the mood tonight in Washington, D.C., now that you've left the Hilton?
It just, you know, I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, as I was walking in on this rainy night, and there's just all these, you know, lunatic protesters screaming, and all these weird boomer people that just have no lives, and they're just so angry. And you walk in and you get the arrogant media, and you see, you know, we were sitting really close to CNN and stuff, and it's just kind of a funny atmosphere anyway. And you're like, Trump's actually here. He's actually going to do it. I've been waiting for this for 5 years of his presidency, for him to just lambaste the media to their face. I was so excited for it. You know, I came down here for this, and then this happens, and you're like, this is. I mean, this is the picture of the left. This is what we've done to the left. These people have been propagandized by the party, by the media, to become this violent, because it's for the political gain of their system.
And Rob,
this is what you get.
You've chronicled it on Rob Schmidt tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern every weeknight. Make sure you're watching that. The Democrats have also prevented the Department of Homeland Security, Rob, from having full funding for over 70 days. Your final point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's just the you know, kind of the cherry on top of all of it.
Yeah.
Is you know, the protection angle, because it's certainly, I don't know if it would have been any better if they were funded. I can't say that it would have been. Maybe it wouldn't have been. But this was a pitiful display of security. Again, it felt like Dr. Oz was speaking tonight and not Donald Trump.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad you're safe, and everyone is. Thank you, Rob, for jumping on a phone call with us.
Of course.
Obviously, we'll be talking very soon. Looking at video of the shooter, looking at video of this all unfolding. Hard to imagine yet again that this is the situation.
And the President of the United States will be live. You can see at the bottom of the screen there. That is the White House briefing room. We're showing video above that from over an hour ago, when the President and First Lady were rushed off the stage along with the Vice President and other dignitaries. Now a live look inside the White House briefing room. I would add one other thing, which is, you know, it's easy to forget that Erica Kirk was there as a VIP guest.
Yep.
And I'm seeing reports that she was rushed out as well. And could you imagine a widow after your husband was assassinated just in September, and now you hear gunshots again at an event where there's all these politicians and high-profile event? I mean, this obviously the violence has to stop, but also the dangerous rhetoric.
She actually was not at an event last week that Vance went at because it was just too hot for her to be there. And Carrie Lake is joining us now on the telephone. She was also in the room this evening there when shots rang out, another attempted assassination of President Trump. Carrie, it's great to have you, Bianca and Ed here. Just walk us through what you saw, what you heard when this was unfolding.
Ooh. Well, I wish I could say I'm surprised, but the mood of the country, thanks to the fake news, you know, pushing hatred for so long, is what it is right now. And I will admit, when I walked into this event tonight, I was really looking forward to the president speaking tonight. I think he was going to have a, you know, knockout speech, and that was going to be funny and a huge win for him. But I also knew I was walking into a room of 90% of the people who despise the president. They're members of the fake news. And I expected to see scrutinizing of my ticket, my identification to be shown, as if I were to, show up at an event like I have many times at the White House and other events. They take a look at your ID. They check their database. This was so lax tonight. And I thought, wow, how weird. Like, they asked for my ticket. I pulled it out. I didn't even show them the front of the ticket. They saw the back of the ticket, and they were like, fine, go on in. And, you know, let's think about it. I was surrounded by people who work for CNN. Think what CNN has been spewing for years against the president. There's a lot of people who despise the president in that room, and to have security that lax. We got seated tonight, and we started to, talk to one another, and we were eating our salad and looking forward to the president. Beautiful Melania Trump, the first lady, walked out with the president. J.D. Vance was there, our vice president. Every secretary of every major agency in the government was there. And all of a sudden, some loud bangs were heard. I didn't recognize them as gunfire, but everybody hit the ground. We all hit the ground. I was sitting next to Chris Ruddy, and he said that was gunfire. And I looked up, and I'm just about to post this on my social media, and there were special forces, the Secret Service, I'm not sure from which branch of the military, literally running tabletop to tabletop with massive weapons and clearing out the room. I saw Bobby Kennedy being rushed out. President by then was already rushed out. Vice President was rushed out. And there were incredible amounts of Secret Service military that were taking charge of the room. I don't know if they captured whoever was the instigator.
They have.
He
is in custody. There's a report, though, that an officer was shot in a bullet-resistant vest. He's expected to be okay, Carrie. But the shooter is in custody. We have video of it up right now. The shooter is in custody. Unclear.
I will tell you, I'm sorry, but guys, I walked out, and I walked out as a complete. I'm sorry, he's a fool. Walking out next to Jake Tapper, and I looked at him and I said, "How dare you? You have caused so much division in this country, pushing lies." I said, we're not going to call it gaslighting anymore. You've lied to the people. How dare you do that? And I saw so many people from all of these news outlets who've just spread abject lies about President Trump over the years. They're part to blame of this, and I don't mean to get dramatic tonight. But I, as an American mother and an American, I'm tired of it. And I'm tired of the fake news that has just spread nothing but lies, trying to hurt this president, trying to go against the American people. And I couldn't sit there silent and walk out next to somebody like a Jake Tapper and act like he's a good guy.
Yeah. Well, how the media, Carrie, to your point, handles this story, and whether they tell the truth about the threats to this president and the dangerous rhetoric and all that. Your quick final thought, because we're getting closer to the president coming out.
Well, I hope the president delivers what he was going to deliver tonight, which is probably going to be sharp, poignant, and funny. Yeah. And, I don't know who was in charge of security tonight. I felt it was lax. I was very concerned walking in. I thought this is very lax. I've been to a million of these events with the president, never seen it this lax, especially considering the group that we were in. And I think the media from CNN, who I sat and talked to, and I don't play around. I don't act like I like people when I'm in public with them because I'm sitting next to them and we're at an event that's a party. I told the people at CNN, you guys have been derelict in your duties to the American people. I'm always going to do that because I think that as a journalist, you have a duty to tell the truth. And I'm glad that Newsmax is doing that. I look forward to seeing with the president. I'm about 2 blocks from the event waiting for my ride to pick me up. Mm-hmm. We never had our dinner. We never had the enjoyment of hearing the president speak, but we know that we support him. Yep. And we're glad he's safe.
We are.
Yep. And we're glad he's safe. Carrie, we're glad you're safe as well. Thank you, Carrie Lake. We'll keep this rolling. By the way, the president's political team just put out a text that a friend shared saying, "I'm addressing the nation at this hour on a matter of great importance. Tune in live. God bless you and God bless the United States of America." Now, if he's just alerting people, to the idea that, hey, I'm addressing this situation, I want you to know, that's one thing. But he says, "I'm addressing the nation on a matter of great importance." I don't know if that suggests that law enforcement has gotten a piece of information about who's behind this or not. I'm not going to speculate. I know we're not going to, but why the president's team put that out to say, hey, this is a matter of great importance. It might just be the threat to the nation. It might be about the threat to the president that is ongoing, but it's interesting.
I know a lot of people were hoping to hear from the president in the more jubilant way his speech would be if he was inside the Hilton tonight, but we will be hearing from the president, and we will be hearing from him at the
we
White
have
House
video
podium.
now of Erica Kirk being evacuated, I believe, which we're going to put up. I mentioned that a moment ago. Her husband was just assassinated only a few months ago in September. I think we're trying to rack that video.
And she was unable to go to one of her own turning point events.
There it is. Okay. So she was being taken out, obviously, with some friends and colleagues. Make sure she was safe. Don't want to dramatize it, but it was only a few months ago that, and you can see she looks upset. It was only a few months ago that her husband was gunned down on that college campus. Let's get more information now before we hear from the president directly from Scott Duffy. He's a retired FBI supervisory special agent, and Scott is kind enough to join us. You can see some of the reporters are in the briefing room in gowns, in black tie as well. Scott, give me one quick point here about what you know about this situation, what you've seen before we hear from the president, real quick.
Yeah, hearing exactly what Carrie Lake was talking about and so forth. A shooter, single shooter outside the venue, right at the security checkpoint. And I can imagine when you have both the president, the vice president, as well as cabinet members, that you have an extremely stepped up security measure.
There's reports that the FBI interviewing guests as they left the ballroom. I want to bring in now the CEO of Newsmax, Chris Ruddy, who was in the room.
Hey there.
Hi, Chris. We're glad you're able to join us. Talk to us about the table full of dignitaries. You're there with members of our team.
What an amazing night. Yeah, it's just, well, we're in the middle of a war. A lot of strange things are happening. We were hosting a dinner, and Greta was there, Rob Schmidt. We had Franklin Graham, the British ambassador. And we were seated in the middle of the correspondents' dinner, very much close to the center aisle. And everybody heard gunshots or explosions of some sort. And we could see people were starting to take cover. We all went under the table. And it was a harrowing moment for a bit. You know, the president was rushed off the stage. We saw that. There were various. I saw Robert Kennedy, for instance, was in the audience. The Secret Service grabbed him. A number of the Trump cabinet that were in the audience grabbed them and removed them. And we didn't have a lot of direction on what was going on. We knew that there was gunshots. We knew somebody. Then we heard somebody had been shot.
Yeah. So, Chris, what do you expect? This is a moment now for the president. We've got a live look at the podium in the White House briefing room, and he stayed behind the scenes here in a holding room for about an hour before heading back to the White House. There was some consideration that the event would go forward, but law enforcement suggested he leave, and he did with the First Lady. What do you anticipate from him? I mean, this is obviously a moment, as you mentioned, we're at war. Well, this president's under threat.
Yeah. Number one rule in any of these type of things, is it a lone gunman or is there a larger group involved? So I didn't know that they kept him in a holding room, but it makes sense, right? Because they're afraid they did this shooting and then somebody's going to be waiting for him as he's exiting the building, right? So that's what they were worried, that there was more people involved. And it was clear to us they were keeping us all. We were in the room. Everybody's standing up. Nobody knows what's going on. We did hear somebody was shot, and that the president was even thinking of coming back. He wanted to come back and continue the dinner. And then apparently the Secret Service somewhat overruled him and said, this is not a very good idea. There might be other security threats. We should get you to a secure location. So the dinner has ended. We are out on the streets here walking to our car so we can exit as well. But it has created a lot of mayhem. And you know, the big thing is the president is safe, the cabinet is safe, and the government, nobody else. Additionally, the Secret Service seems to have acted very promptly in dealing with the threat and terminating the threat.
Chris, I want to add one thing. Carol Markowitz from the New York Post is among those reporting now that their initial reports are the attempted shooter at this dinner is 31-year-old Thomas Allen from Torrance, California, and that he is the gentleman in custody that we've seen video of, Chris. And there are other online, and these are initial reports, so we want to be careful and not speculate. Initial reports suggesting that he's an educator in Torrance, California. And obviously, there's been a lot of online hate directed at this president. I'll leave it at that for now. Presumably, the president's been briefed on these details, Chris. But this shooter is alive right now, so they're going to be able to question him. In other situations, like Butler, the shooter was killed, and we didn't get more information. Your thoughts?
Look, I don't know who the person is involved. I'm going to reserve comment to be here, but obviously there's a lot of hate online. The media is propelling a lot of this hate. It's crazy. And the Trump derangement syndrome. And we're in the middle of a war. We're actually two wars, right? There's one in Ukraine, there's one in Russia, with Russia, and then there's the Iranian war. So these are serious threats, serious times. I think everybody should be on high alert. But certainly, I think they're taking a lot of extra precautions with the president, and this was one of them. Obviously, they moved him out very quickly. I think the Secret Service did a good job, from what I see. But you know, we need to wait before we make more judgments about what was involved.
Right, absolutely. And Chris, you know,
but we
some
had
people
a, you know,
have said
Franklin Graham was there,
Greta. They were all very concerned. We had the British ambassador at our table. But, you know, they're all concerned about the heightened security risk around the president. Franklin, I know, is very, you know, praying for the president at this time. He told me that. So we're going to continue to work and monitor the situation here.
You know, there's so many festivities planned this year, Chris, for 250th America. You know, this is a time where there's going to be a lot of events that Americans will want to go to, big crowds. I mean, there were some, we spoke to Rob Schmidt a few minutes ago. He felt security wasn't really up to what he thought the level could have been. You know, was there anything you took away with all the dignitaries that were there with you at our table this evening? You're walking in. Did you feel that security was sufficient, or did anything stand out to you?
Well, I don't want to make any judgment about the security or lack of security. I just don't know enough to say it right now, but I think that they obviously eliminated the threat pretty quickly, which is I could hear gunshots. There were some people that said, oh, there were no gunshots. No, I heard at least 2, maybe 3 thuds, and they were outside the room. So, you know, like the gunshots fired, not immediate, you hear it differently than you would if it was an earshot. So,
Chris, there's also online right now, Meghan McCain, among others, is saying, I don't want to hear one more bleeping criticism of Trump's new ballroom at the White House, meaning, you know, the president's taken a lot of heat for having private donors put this together, and the president has made the point that the White House ballroom not only will be beautiful, as he says, but it will be secure, and there'll be a bunker under it, and that the threat matrix, Chris, has changed a lot in just the last few years.
Well, I don't know, Megan, you know, what she's putting out, but I think it's premature to make any comment about the ballroom. I'm not sure how that has to do with this. The president could be anywhere and have a security threat. I'm not sure the ballroom ameliorates that situation. Look, the press has a right to criticize the ballroom if they want. It's a free country, right? But, you know, the hate that's put out about the president, I think is a problem, and that's driving a lot of this, where people actually taking violent means. We're coming up to a very significant election. We have a war going on. And so, you know, it's something we've all got to, like, pull together on.
And
that
Chris,
we're not going to accept this.
As someone who's known the president for a long time, and we see his resilience, if you will, even on display tonight as we were looking here live. One side is the ballroom, the other side is the podium, where he will emerge, and we will hear him now within just 2 hours of having shots again fired in a room. Obviously, the intent was he was the target. Just talk to us about the person that you've known here, now the leader of the free world, who is going to come out, who is going to speak, and the message he will deliver that will be heard by our adversaries as well, and those who do want to do him harm.
The president, you know, he knows that it was a high risk when he ran for president, that he would have threats. He was a celebrity before that. He had certain threats, but it's escalated significantly. And I think it's a sacrifice he and his family have made for the good of the country. And they're willing to accept it, you know, but they want to be secure, as like anybody would. I think the Secret Service, in this case, Butler was a bit of a disaster. I think everybody agrees with that. But it looks like they acted promptly. We'll wait to hear what the details are involved before we make any judgment about
Chris,
it.
there's one new detail. The president has just put on Truth Social. Presumably he'll talk about it. And here he is, video of the shooter running past Secret Service and getting shot. So here's the president. Let's listen to it.
Well, thank you very much. That was very unexpected, but incredibly acted upon by Secret Service and law enforcement. And this was an event dedicated to freedom of speech that was supposed to bring together members of both parties with members of the press. And in a certain way it did, because the fact that they just unified, I saw a room that was just totally unified. It was in one way very beautiful, a very beautiful thing to see. A man charged a security checkpoint armed with multiple weapons, and he was taken down by some very brave members of Secret Service, and they acted very quickly and have just released, for purposes of transparency, clarity, I've ordered it to be put out. You probably have it by now. Put out on Truth and put out on many other platforms. A tape showing the violence of this thug that attacked our Constitution and also showing how quickly Secret Service and law enforcement acted on our country's behalf. Really did a great job. One officer was shot, but saved by the fact that he was wearing obviously a very good bulletproof vest. He was shot from very close distance with a very powerful gun, and the vest did the job. I just spoke to the officer, and he's doing great. He's in great shape. He has very high spirits, and we told him we love him and respect him, and he's a very proud guy. He's very proud of what he does, Secret Service agent. And we looked at all of the conditions that took place tonight, and I will say, you know, it's not a particularly secure building. And I didn't want to say this, but this is why we have to have all of the attributes of what we're planning at the White House. It's actually a larger room, and it's much more secure. It's drone-proof, it's bulletproof glass. We need the ballroom. That's why Secret Service, that's why the military are demanding it. They've wanted the ballroom for 150 years for lots of different reasons, but today's a little bit different because today we need levels of security that probably nobody's ever seen before. But everyone owes a tremendous debt of gratitude to the courage of law enforcement, the law enforcement, and working with the D.C. police, and we just spoke with the mayor. And when we're finished, the police chief is going to take over and discuss it also from their viewpoint. But they also performed exactly as they were supposed to, and you see the attacker in different positions, but you also see the attacker totally subdued and under control. So as you know, this is not the first time in the past couple of years that our republic has been attacked by a would-be assassin who sought to kill. In Butler, Pennsylvania, less than 2 years ago, you all know that story, and in Palm Beach, Florida, a few months after that, we came close. We really had, again, we had some great work done by law enforcement. But in light of this evening's events, I asked that all Americans recommit with their hearts in resolving our difference peacefully. We have to resolve our differences. I will say, you had Republicans, Democrats, independents, conservatives, liberals, and progressives. Those words are interchangeable, perhaps, but maybe they're not. But yet everybody in that room, big crowd, record-setting crowd. There was a record-setting group of people. And there was a tremendous amount of love and coming together. I watched, and I was very, very impressed by that. But we were, First Lady and I were taken very well care of, very quickly rushed off the stage. Vice President J.D. Vance, who's here, was likewise beautifully done. He was just saying how quickly everybody acted, law enforcement, Secret Service in particular in this case, but law enforcement. Marco had the same thing. Pete was there. Pete didn't want any help. He didn't want anybody to help him. He doesn't want anybody to help him, but he did get some, didn't you? And I think you also said that it was very impressive. So with that, I'd like to ask Todd Blanche to come up, say a few words, and tell you it's already underway. The man has been captured. They're going to his apartment. I guess he lives in California, and he's a sick person, a very sick person, and we don't want things like this to happen. I think it's very important that I say, though, and I told the representatives of the evening, they did such a beautiful job. It was such a beautiful evening. And again, they're talking about free speech in our Constitution. That's what it's all about, not just White House Correspondents. It was really based on free speech in our Constitution. But I said very importantly that we'll do it again within the next 30 days, and we'll make it bigger and better and even nicer. So I just want to thank everybody that was involved. I also want to thank the press, the media. You've been very responsible in your coverage. I will say I've been seeing what's been out. You've been very responsible. So Todd Blanche, I'd like to say a few words, and then we're going to have cash. And then you're going to go on. We can ask, I guess we can take a couple of questions. I want to thank the First Lady for That was a rather traumatic experience for her. There was a lot of action taking place up there very quickly. But again, the response time was really incredible. And we're going to reschedule. We're going to do it again. We're not going to let anybody take over our society. We're not going to cancel things out because we can't do that. We wanted to stay tonight. I will tell you, I fought like hell to stay. But it was protocol. They said, please, sir, because they didn't know there was a lot of action going on, and they didn't know could there be probably a lone shooter, but we'll find out. We'll find out very quickly. They have it very well under control. So I want to thank everybody very much. And Todd Blanche, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Tonight you saw the very worst and the very best of this country. You saw the very worst by the actions of that coward that the president just talked about. But you also saw the very best because you saw law enforcement do exactly what they're supposed to do. And you'll see the videos come out, I expect, very shortly, and you'll see law enforcement do exactly what we want them to do. And so I echo what what President Trump just said, that we are extraordinarily grateful and appreciative of the men and women of law enforcement that did their jobs tonight, including one who was injured. This investigation is ongoing. I expect you will see charges filed shortly. The charges should be self-evident given the conduct, but as you'll hear, there will be multiple charges surrounding the shooting, around the possession of firearms, and anything else that we can get on this guy. The investigation is obviously ongoing and just started. There is federal law enforcement already working on search warrants and doing their job, and I don't want to get ahead of them and don't want to get ahead of the work that they're doing even as we speak. Director Patel and I were just on the crime scene a short while ago, and everybody in this room should rest assured that the Metropolitan Police Department, the FBI, Secret Service, everybody's on the scene doing their job. I know that the police chief is going to give an update from the scene as soon as we're finished here, and I obviously will lead the details of what they have learned to him. But in the meantime, I just want to thank everybody in this room for the courage. And I want to thank President Trump for his words, and I promise you, justice will be served. Thank you. Director Patel.
Thank you, General. Thank you, Mr. President. The President's absolutely right. You saw the best resolve of American law enforcement because you, Mr. President, inspire them 24/7, 365. You give them the resources that they need, and they know that you have their back. And that is a changing dynamic in this country, and that's why you saw brave Secret Service agents respond immediately, swiftly, subdue and take down the suspect, and safeguard the lives of thousands of individuals at that hotel. Thanks to our interagency partnership with the Department of Homeland Security and the Metropolitan Police Department, the FBI was rapidly deployed onto the scene, took over the evidence response unit, is examining all the ballistics that were found on scene to include the long gun and the shell casings. We are conducting witness interviews as we speak. You will hear from our team on the scene there with the mayor and the head of the FBI field division there. But please know what the Attorney General has just said reigns no truer. You saw the very best of America tonight. The very best unite us at a time of uncertainty, because we have leadership here with the President and the Vice President that backs law enforcement, and the men and women that I shook their hands on the scene today could not have been prouder to show up on scene. And as the Attorney General said, make no mistake, we are conducting witness interviews. If you have any information whatsoever related to this event, 1-800-CALL-FBI, 1-800-CALL-FBI. No piece of information is too small. No piece of information is inadequate. We will evaluate it all. We will also be conducting interviews of those that were there. And if any of those individuals have information, please come forward to law enforcement or the FBI or the Metropolitan Police Department. We will be examining this individual's background thoroughly. That process has already started, and we are going to ensure that he was either a lone wolf actor or anyone else that was responsible. We will analyze all evidence immediately to make sure that we safeguard this country. Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, thank you for your leadership. Attorney General and Homeland Secretary Merlin, thank you for your partnership in law enforcement.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, we'll do a couple, and then we go to the chief. Madam Chairman, I just want to say you did a fantastic job. What a beautiful evening, and we're going to reschedule. Okay. And after that, it's very tough for her to ask a killer question, right? But you have done a fantastic job. Please.
Mr. President, I appreciate it. As you mentioned, it all happened so quickly, and I wonder, especially because unfortunately you have experience with these sorts of threats, in that moment when you realized there was a threat and service agents were telling us to get down, can you describe what was going through your mind, how you were feeling in that moment?
That's a very good question, actually. It's always shocking when something like this happens. It's happened to me a little bit, and that never changes. The fact we were sitting right next to each other, First Lady on my right, and I heard a noise and sort of thought it was a tray. I thought it was a tray going down. You know, I've heard that many times, and it was a pretty loud noise. And it was from quite far away. He hadn't breached the area at all. They really got him. But so it was quite far away, but it was a gun. And some people really understood that pretty quickly. Other people didn't. I was watching to see what was happening. Probably should have gone down even faster. Melania was very cognizant, I think, of what happened. I think she knew immediately what happened. She was saying, "That's a bad noise." And we were whisked away along with other people, but we were really whisked away. And again, the performance of the Secret Service and the police, all of the law enforcement, I thought was really good. So it was very quick. There wasn't a lot of time to be thinking, because it was a matter of seconds before we were out the door and gone into an area. We very much, and you wanted to too, we very much wanted to continue it, because I don't like to let these sick people, these thugs, these horrible, horrible people, change the fabric of our life, change the course of what we do. So we held out. You were there. We held out right till the end, but they didn't want to take a chance, and I understand there was.
Thank you, President Trump. There's a report in the New York Post that this assailant assembled his weapon somewhere on site at the hotel. What do you think about that? And I ask respectfully, why do you think this keeps happening to you?
Well, you know, I've studied assassinations, and I must tell you, the most impactful people, the people that do the most, you take a look at the people, Abraham Lincoln, I mean, you go through the people that have gone through this, where they got them. But the people that do the most, the people that make the biggest impact, they're the ones that they go after. They don't go after the ones that don't do much, because they like it that way. And when you look at the people that have either, whether it was an attempt or a successful attempt, they're very impactful people. Just take a look at the names there, the big names. And I hate to say I'm honored by that, but I've done a lot. We've done a lot. We've taken this country, and we were a laughing stock for years, and now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We've changed this country, and there are a lot of people that are not happy about that. So I think that's the answer, Peter.
And after Butler, your team for a while rethought outdoor events.
Yeah.
Do you think that you now need to rethink
No.
indoor
Well,
events?
but then you just don't do events. No, I can't do that. I have to, it is what it is. We have to do it. The room was very, very secure. You know, he charged from 50 yards away, so he was very far away from the room.
And what did you think when you saw the video of how fast he was running?
He was moving. He was really moving. And the reaction time was great. Boy, those guys, they had their guns drawn literally by the time he was there. They were shooting.
That's right.
I thought they were very impressive. And if I didn't, I'd let you know. You know, I'm not going to be, I would not stand for that. No, I thought they were very impressive.
Thank you, President Trump, and thank you for updating us on the
Thank you.
suspect earlier. Were you aware of any threats? Was your team aware of any threats beforehand? And do you believe you were the target of this tonight?
I guess. I mean, these people they're crazy. They're crazy. And, you know, you never know. He was very far away from me. He had to go through a lot. We had resources all over. We had resources sitting at tables literally in disguise, sitting maybe at your table, who knows? But we had people all over the room, so he had a long way to go. That was really a first line of defense, and they got him. And they really, they acted incredibly. No, there was no notification. We had no idea. Go ahead,
Do you know
Caitlin.
any political motivations from this?
Well, you never know. Now, we'll be able to tell you that maybe by tomorrow or the next day. He's in custody, and they're asking him a lot of questions. I guess they're going over, Todd, and they're already at his apartment. He lives in California.
Yes, sir.
And they're over there, so they'll be able to tell you. Thank you, Caitlin.
President Trump, did the suspect say anything, or was he wearing anything that would allege some type of motive here?
No, I mean, he was a guy who looked pretty evil when he was down. They had him down. He was fighting hard. He was, in my opinion, a sick person. Who would do that but a sick person? But I think you're going to find everything about him. No reason to talk about it now. But tomorrow at this time, long before this time, you're going to know a lot of things about him. They seem to think he was a lone wolf, and I feel that too.
Are you concerned about U.S. Secret Service protection ability? We saw several of the detainees take minutes to be escorted out of the room.
No, they acted very quickly. No, I was very impressed by Secret Service. I mean, I'm the one, and Mark Wayne, you would agree with that, I think. Absolutely. I'm the one that would complain. You don't have to complain for me. I would be complaining. I'd be up here right now saying they didn't do their job. Oh, believe me, because, it's my life. And I want to live because I want to make this country great. That's why I want to live. But when you're impactful, they go after you. When you're not impactful, they leave you alone. Okay, a couple of more. Go ahead, please.
Is there any indication that this shooting could have been linked to the war in Iran?
I don't think so, but you never know. We're going to know a lot. We have the best people in the world working on it, and we're going to know a lot. Please.
Mr. President, there's a lot. You, as well as some of us who have covered Butler, experienced another horrific day 2 years ago.
Yeah.
What felt similar? You had the First Lady with you today. What felt different? And you have another 2+ years in office. Are you concerned about something like this happening
Well, I
again?
can't be concerned. I can only get great people. They did the job, in my opinion, a much better job than Butler. Butler had one weak spot that we all know about. Somebody should have been up there. But even Butler, we had our sniper on our side within 4.2 seconds from a distance of about 400 yards, one shot, and he was gone. And if he didn't do it now, he's David. His name was David. I say, hello, David, every time I see him. David, I like you very much, David. But think of that. Now, if he doesn't hit him, and he hit him right between the eyes from 400 yards without any notice, nobody knew. He heard a sound. He looked over, and there was actually a tree that was somewhat in his way. You know the story very well. And he aimed, he fired. And if he didn't do that, beyond me, you would have had a lot more people killed. We lost one great person and 2 people very badly hurt. They're okay now. But no, that was so. In a sense, it was pretty amazing the job they did. But they did have that one weak spot, as you know. They should have had that covered. Tonight they had everything covered very quickly, and he was fast. He was running full blast, and they got him before they got any further. I was very far away. He hadn't anywhere close to breach the doors of the ballroom. The ballroom was sealed, and everybody in there. That's why once those doors opened, they didn't want to do tonight. If the doors weren't opened, we could have probably done it tonight, but I think we're much better off rescheduling. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, for you and perhaps law enforcement as well, what is the level of confidence that this was a lone actor, and has the suspect made any statements to police while in custody?
Yeah, I think it's just it's not my profession. We have great professionals up here and outside that have been working with us. My impression is he was a lone wolf, whack job. These are crazy people. And they have to be dealt with. We had that in the second attempt, as you know, and he's spending life in prison. Because if you let him out, they'll probably, if he serves 10 years or 15 years, you let him out, he'll probably try it again with somebody else. They're sick people. We have a lot of sick people. But you're going to know, I think very shortly, you're going to know, Todd, A lot about him. You're going to know a lot about him. Yeah, a couple of more. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Are you concerned about political violence? This could be politically motivated.
All violence. I'm concerned about everything. Look, but I can't be so concerned that you can't function. No, I'm here. It's a dangerous profession. You know, I tell the story, race car drivers, I think it's very dangerous. So if you take 1% and then take about 10% of 1%, just to break it down very easily, they die. So much less than 1%, 10% of 1%. I think bull riding is very dangerous. If you take about the same, 10% of 1%, much less than 1%. But if you take presidents, it's 5.8%. And about 8% are shot at. So nobody told me this was such a dangerous profession. If Marco would have told me, maybe I wouldn't have run. Maybe I would have said, I'll take a pass. No, it's a dangerous profession, but I don't view it that way. Look, I'm here to do a job. As part of the job, it is a dangerous, I can't imagine that there's any profession that's more dangerous. But I love the country, and I'm very proud. I'm very proud of the job we've done. You see what's happened. We have a great country. We've got, I think, the most successful, the hottest country anywhere in the world. This happened over a period of just a year, and we're going to do great things. But with that come risks. There's no question about it. Yeah.
To that end, I mean, there's been so much political violence, not just aimed at yourself, but at other members of, members of Congress, state house speakers, you name it. Is that just the cost of doing business to do politics in America anymore?
Yeah. Well,
what does that say about our country?
Too. We're not the only country. You look at this great violence with all countries. I was talking to somebody from another country today, and they have numerous assassinations of political figures all over the world. You look at South America, it's like some of the numbers are just horrific. It's dangerous stuff, whether it's here or someplace else. No country is immune. No country. Good question.
Is it possible to turn that temperature down at this point?
Well, probably if I decided to just not do much, if I let everybody rip us off and take advantage of us. Look, we're leading the world in trade now. We're leading the world in the military. We're the greatest military in the world. I rebuilt it in my first term, and now we use it because we have no choice. We can't let, as an example, Iran, we can't let them get a nuclear weapon. Everything will be peanuts compared to that if they ever were given a nuclear weapon, and they'd use it too. Marco and I were talking about it today. They would use it without even hesitation. We can't do that. It was a shame. I said, oh boy, look at the numbers. We just broke 50,000 in the Dow. We just broke 7,000 in the S&P. They said we couldn't do it in 7 years, in 5 years, 4 years. They were saying maybe in 5 or 6 years. And we did it in 1 year. And I called everybody together. I called all of these people and others, and I said, we have to take a little journey. I seek to do this. We just had the great number. We just broke 50,000. Wasn't supposed to happen during my term. Wasn't reachable. We did it in 1 year, and I said, we're going to have to make a journey to Iran. They're going to have a nuclear weapon if we don't do it. We had the B-2 bombers take them out. I terminated in the first term the Obama agreement, the Iran nuclear agreement, which was a disaster. That was a road to a nuclear weapon. They would have used it. They would have used it 100%. So, when you do things like that, you become a target. If I wasn't doing that, I guess I'd be a lot less of a target. But I'm honored to be. Okay, one more question. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, President Trump. Thank you, President Trump. Do you know how the gun was brought into the hotel? And also, how does this event impact you as the leader of our country? Do you think it will change your
I
leadership?
like not to think about it. I lead a pretty normal life, considering it's a dangerous life. I think I handle it as well as it can be handled. I think a lot of other people, you read stories where they become basket cases. To be honest with you, I'm not a basket case. I really take it as it is. I do it for the country. I'm not doing it for any other reason. I have a first lady who's doing a terrific job. She loves the country, and she recognizes it better than anybody. She's told me numerous times. She said, you are in a dangerous job. But that goes along with her, too. I mean, it's dangerous for her, too. We sat there tonight. We heard that noise, and it was either a tray or a bullet. I was hoping it was a tray, but it wasn't. And again, we had some very brave people doing a great job, so we're very proud of them and happy with them. I just want to thank everybody. They will be able to give you all that information as to the names and everything else. I think we released the names already. Most of you would have it, but his name. We appreciate it. I see so many tuxedos and beautiful dresses. It was a little different evening than we thought, but we're going to do it again, and we have a great chairman who we're so proud of, and we have to make it better. We'll make it safer, I guess, right? But we're going to make it even better. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
President Trump, can we hear from the First Lady about how impactful this was? Can we hear from her about...
Well, honey, would you want to say something?
Okay.
One in the back,
Right. Millions of people across the globe, in fact, are watching you. You demonstrated courageous leadership, and thank God you're alive. All of us are alive today. What is the message that you want to give to the world that this should change? What corrective measures can we take from here on?
Well, all you can do, look, I don't care how many people you have, how good they are. They can be the greatest people. You have the greatest security in history. If you have a whack job who's got a brain, but it's a little bit distorted or a lot distorted, they can make trouble. I would say, Pete, right? You know, they can make trouble. Some of these people are of genius level IQ, and they're nuts. So it can be trouble. So you do absolutely the best. You get the best. We have the best people. Well, look, it was proven tonight. He started running from 50 yards, and he was fast. He was like a blur on tape. He was moving. It was very impressive the way they got him, because a lot of people would be looking and saying, you know, it's like a weird feeling, and they would let him get through, but they didn't let him get through. They drew those guns so fast. They looked like Matt Dillon. They looked like somebody that knew what they were doing, and we really do. But it comes with the territory. And if you want to do a great job, I really believe that. And you take a look at what's happened to some of our greatest presidents, and it doesn't happen to people that don't do anything. And it's not going to deter me from winning the war in Iran. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I really don't think so, based on what we know. But we're going to continue to do a great job. That's all I can do. Thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So the president, the vice president, the acting attorney general, half the cabinet was there. He made a reference
FBI
to
Director Kash Patel.
Pete Hegseth there, Secretary of War. Looks like he's filing out a lot of new information from the president. The first thing I don't want to miss is he said that the suspect had multiple weapons. Did you catch that? Because we knew about one gun that may have been assembled in another room. He spoke to the officer. The president spoke to some law enforcement officer. There were initial reports that it was Secret Service agent. It's unclear. He said an officer who was hit by at least one bullet, but was wearing a bulletproof vest and is in good spirits and healthy, it sounds like.
He says, we talked to him, we told him we love him. Again, good spirits, which is the best news. Also identifying that shooter. He is Cole Tomas Allen, 31 years old, from Torrance, California. So that is the suspect. Search warrants are being executed as we speak. They want to find out if this is a lone wolf. President Trump answering multiple questions about how it felt tonight, as once again he is the target of an assassination.
He said people need to come together and resolve their differences peacefully. This has happened too much. I would also quickly note before we get to our guests that there was some levity where the president said, boy, I was ready to rip it and go after the media, but I think the next time this is assembled in the next 30 days, maybe I'll be a little lighter on the press, because obviously the tone has changed. But I just want to add one thing. So Robert Kennedy's son has posted a text exchange with his father and his father's wife, Cheryl Hines, the actress. And he wrote, "Pops, you okay?" Cheryl Hines wrote, "It was crazy. Bobby's security team came in so fast and took us out of the building. They were lifting me over chairs." Very serious, right?
Right.
And Dad knew, I guess this is Dad's new cell phone, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., quote, "I'm really hungry." because I guess they never got served dinner. So there is a little
Well,
levity.
maybe President Trump
nobody...
is going to get Big Macs for them at the White House.
Unbelievable.
It is a lot of levity. He came out his first line, says that was unexpected.
Exactly.
And they're in the tuxes and black ties. So obviously another historic night here at the White House.
We've been live for a few hours now. Let's keep it rolling with Scott Duffy. He's a retired FBI supervisory special agent. Scott, we had a little insight from you. We appreciate your patience.
Yes.
You've heard from the president now, him saying there were multiple weapons with this suspect. The suspect's alive, so they're going to be able to question him. What's going on at the FBI and the Secret Service right now, in your estimation?
Yeah, so just as Director Patel said, the evidence response team is on scene. So right now, everything's locked down. And ultimately, following the protocols, the dinner had to stop because now an investigation has to ensue. So the suspect, depending on what his injuries, if any, will be dealt with and is now hopefully in the process of being interviewed by the FBI and Secret Service counterparts, and get to the bottom, the motive. Ultimately, the motive always lies within the mind and heart of the doer. So the FBI is now also all their offices wherever this person may have had contact with. So he had to travel here. How did he travel? Where did he stay? If he stayed in any of those places, the FBI wants to be there and interviewing wherever, hotels, motels, and ultimately where he originated from and where he ended up here and just prior to. So there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of individuals that are doing just that.
And 1-800-CALL-FBI, the number Kash Patel put out saying no tip is small. Let us know. We know the FBI also interviewing people as they were there. Could be someone volunteers behind the scenes who saw something. Scott, finally, too, President Trump, made a point that this is why, the ballroom, having a secure area, if things like, are held at the White House, there's, very little room for this. He also reiterated, though, that, he's not going to stop thugs, sick people. We're not going to let them change the way we do things.
Right. And so he's basically saying we're not going to let them change the way they do things. We're going to keep pushing forward. Your thoughts and reaction to that?
Absolutely. And I think this country, especially not just with the past two assassination attempts, where I think it's made President Trump even drive him even more. Obviously, he's going to take into consideration what the Secret Service is saying, for example, outside events. But this is a perfect example. No matter where he goes, no matter where any of these protectees go, if there is somebody that is targeting them, that we are seeing unfolded there with the quick actions of Secret Service and those that were there. That is rapid.
Yeah.
And to be able to draw your weapon and be able to target and stop that threat is just an amazing testimony to the service.
Scott, last thing from you before we bring in our next panel. The video that the president posted on Truth Social, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but basically it suggests that the gunman sort of tried to sprint past one of the checkpoints at a rapid speed. Again, the president says with multiple weapons. We're showing the video now. I mean, really moving. And to your point, quick action by what appears to be Secret Service, but it's grainy. Describe what you see in that video there.
Yeah, so a couple of things, at least from what I can see. This individual looked like he is sprinting and getting to a specific location. It'll be interesting to see if he was firing as he was moving or if he was looking to fire when he got to a specific location. This could have gone down so bad in so many different ways if he chose to be firing during that sprint. This was a sprint to get to a location. I imagine the long gun is what they were able to see, and then ultimately, what did he have on him?
Yeah, good insight. The D.C. mayor is now speaking. Thank you.
Thank you,
we
Scott.
appreciate it, Scott. Muriel Bowser, the Democrat mayor in D.C. Let's listen.
FBI Field Office Darren Cox. We're here to provide you an update on the incident that took place tonight at 8:36 p.m. at the Washington Hilton at the site of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. At about that time, a sole gunman rushed a Secret Service checkpoint in a lobby at the hotel. Secret Service agents stopped the suspect. An agent was injured and transported to a local hospital where the agent is receiving care. The suspect is also transported to a local hospital where he is being evaluated. The president returned safely to the White House, as you know. We are so very thankful to members of law enforcement who did their jobs tonight and made sure that all guests were safe. We have no reason to believe at this time that anyone else was involved. I want to turn to the Chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, Chief Carroll, to provide a law enforcement update and specifics.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, I'm Jeff Carroll, Interim Chief of Police for the Metropolitan Police Department. This afternoon, this evening, members of the United States Secret Service and the Metropolitan Police Department were here at the Washington Hotel for a site detail for the Correspondents Center. As the Mayor mentioned, at approximately 8:36 tonight, an individual charged a U.S. Secret Service checkpoint here in the lobby area of the hotel. He was armed with a shotgun, a handgun, and multiple knives. As he ran through that checkpoint, members of law enforcement from the United States Secret Service intercepted that individual. This is a very preliminary investigation at this point. We do know that law enforcement exchanged gunfire with the individual. We do know that a U.S. Secret Service uniformed division officer was struck in his vest. He was transported to a local hospital for treatment. He seems to be in good spirits at this time. The suspect in this case, he was not struck by gunfire. However, he was transported to a local hospital to be evaluated. Again, we're very early in the investigation. We have members of the United States Secret Service, the Metropolitan Police Department, and the FBI here to continue to investigate this matter. But at this point, it does appear he is a lone actor, a lone gunman. There does not appear to be any sort of danger to the public at this time. However, we are continuing to investigate this matter. At this point, I will turn it over to, I believe, the FBI.
Hi, good evening. I'm Darren Cox. I'm the Assistant Director in charge of the FBI's Washington Field Office. The American public should be proud of the quick response and heroic actions from law enforcement officers tonight to keep the American public safe. Their actions are absolutely heroic. The public should also rest assured that there will be no stone unturned during this investigation. The FBI currently has our Joint Terrorism Task Force here on scene, along with our Criminal Division, our Crisis Response Team, and agents from across the country are working on any leads that may come in this investigation. Anyone with tips in this investigation should call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Thank you.
Director Kern.
Thank you. My name is Sean Kern. I'm the Director of the Secret Service. Tonight, we saw exactly what our brave men and women do each and every day to protect our protectees. It's not easy, and I will tell you that they performed admirably. We got to see what they do, and that individual, when he charged a checkpoint, was apprehended. It shows that our multi-layered protection works, and I'm grateful to our partners that help assist us with building these sites and protecting these sites. Very fortunate that this officer is alive, is being observed, and I'm grateful that the President reached out to this officer and spoke with him earlier. I ask everybody to pray for him and all of our officers and agents that were involved, and I will tell you, we will continue with the mission. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Pirro.
I'm Janine Pirro. I'm the United States Attorney. Right now, the defendant is being charged with 2 counts, 924C, using a firearm during a crime of violence, and a second crime under 111, which is assault on a federal officer using a dangerous weapon. Now, as you all know, there was an individual, a uniformed Secret Service officer, who was shot. Unfortunately, he is doing all right and he will be fine. But it is clear, based upon what we know so far, that this individual was intent on doing as much harm and as much damage as he could. And thankfully, because of the checkpoint right outside the ballroom, where thousands of people were situated to hear the President of the United States. Because that checkpoint worked, there was no one who was injured when it was clear where this defendant was going. Now, I want to make one comment. As a participant, someone who was in the ballroom, who came this evening to be part of a very lovely event at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, I, for the first time, was in a situation where there were shots fired, shots heard, and a whole room went silent. When I lifted my head and when I looked up, every law enforcement officer was out there as we all had our heads down, thousands of them. These are the men and women every day who do what they do silently, and they do it with courage and with dignity. Thank God for our partners, the FBI, the Secret Service, the Metropolitan Police. All of them tonight acted so quickly that they prevented what could have been a horrific event where we were all sitting there in one room. The defendant will be arraigned on Monday in federal district court. But make no mistake, there will be many more charges based upon the information that we are learning in this very fluid situation. Thank you.
We'll take a few questions. Right here in the front, right here in the front.
Confirm that this suspect is specifically targeting the president, and is he talking to law enforcement now?
Chief.
Sure. So at this point, what we know is we know the individual charged the checkpoint with a firearm in his hand. We know he was running in the direction of the ballroom that the president was in, as well as other cabinet members. So what his specific motivation was, we can't say at this point. However, as we continue to investigate that, we'll continue to work towards that.
Chief, when you
Check
say
here.
there seems to have been a lack of authorization to come to this event. Was this a failure on the Secret Service?
What we have here is a multi-layered approach. The director spoke about it. We have officers on the outside from the Metropolitan Police Department along with the escort. The inside portion of any presidential site is handled by the Secret Service and law enforcement partners. This is a multi-layered approach. The point of this checkpoint is to intercept individuals that were there, and what we see in this case is when he reached that checkpoint, Secret Service agents and law enforcement engaged him immediately. They were able to bring him into custody and prevent anyone from being harmed.
Right here.
Chief Carroll, can you tell us if you found a vehicle associated with the suspect? And are you or the FBI conducting any search warrants either on a vehicle or locations here or elsewhere around the country?
Sure, Mark. So as you can imagine, this is very early in the investigation. So, things we're looking into is his background, vehicles. Those are all things that the FBI, the Metropolitan Police Department, and the Secret Service are working together jointly to determine, is there anything else that's available? So I would imagine as we continue to go through this investigation, there will be additional search warrants and things of that nature as the investigation progresses.
Is the suspect known to law enforcement?
At this point, he was not known to the Metropolitan Police Department, I can tell you that.
Right here.
Chief, there are multiple other parties and events happening associated with this weekend tonight. Is there any reason to believe that there will be security concerns at those events? Are there preparations being made locally to protect those attendees?
Yeah, absolutely not. So we have no indication. This is an isolated incident with one individual is the information that we do have. However, we do have additional officers across the city that are giving special attention. We do know there were some after parties and events that are planned that we will be providing coverage for those events.
Yep,
Chief,
right here.
the president said that this is not a particularly secure building. Do you agree with that assessment?
I'm not exactly 100% familiar with this building. I do know in this incident tonight, I know there was a security plan that was developed by the Secret Service that the Metropolitan Police Department assisted with, and I know that security plan did work this evening.
Right here.
Thank you so much. Do you know specifically if President Trump was a target of this attack? And can you speak to the reporting about the suspect assembling a long weapon to get into the ballroom? Can you speak to that at all?
Yes, as we said before, we do know the president was inside the ballroom. We know there was cabinet members and many guests in there. Who specifically he was targeting at this point, that's part of the investigation. We do know that he was armed with a shotgun when he ran through that checkpoint, so that would look like a long weapon in video.
All right, right here.
Can you clarify, earlier you said there was an exchange of gunfire. Did the suspect fire any shots? And did the uniformed officer, do you know yet which weapon he was shot?
Yeah, obviously we're only a couple hours into this incident, so we don't have that level of information. The FBI's evidence response team is here. They're processing the scene. So as the investigation develops, all that information will be figured out with the ballistics. The ATF is also on scene here with us.
So the suspect
did or did not fire a shot?
Sure. So again, it's very preliminary information. We do believe he did. However, as the investigation determines, we'll pull the shell casings. We'll be able to get more information as we review more evidence. We're very early in the investigation.
All right, we can take a couple more right here, and one more over here.
Thank you so much. So the president said that he wants there to be another event within 30 days. Given what happened tonight, do you have any sense of what additional security measures might be put in place to ensure that something similar does not happen again?
Sure. I'll toss it to the Secret Service.
Yep, this is what we plan for every day. So we take each and every case and we evaluate it, and we do site assessments. And that's why we go out and build these sites per what the event is, and that's how we go about our business.
So will there be any changes or added measures given that this did happen?
We're going to have to evaluate this evening.
Thank you.
Chief, is there any indication how the suspect got into the hotel? Was it a guest here? Are you searching rooms here?
So preliminary information, we do believe he was a guest here at the hotel. We have secured a room here in the hotel. And again, we'll go through the appropriate procedures to determine what was inside there. But that is secure. At this point, like I said, we believe he is the only suspect in this case.
Okay, to jump on that question, I understand the multi-approach to security, but to walk in with a weapon of that caliber and get all the way to the ballroom, which is on the lower level, seems to be quite an extraordinary feat. How does that happen?
Sure. So again, I mean, we're very early in the investigation, so we'll have to determine, we'll go through video across the hotel to figure out how the gun got in, how it got down here. Those things will come through the investigation. At this point, we don't have that level of detail.
Okay, last one.
Yes, video appears to show the president falling down and being escorted out. Is he injured at all during his evacuation?
No, we don't have any information that he was injured.
Could you clarify how he was detained? If he was not shot, could you clarify how he was detained?
Sure. So law enforcement right here in this very area, they actually tackled him to the ground and handcuffed him.
And how many people are in the hospital? Can you give us his name?
Not at this time. We will release his name, Mark, once we have all the information. Again, we're still running a lot of things down.
How many people in the hospital?
In the hospital, so we have the Uniform Division Secret Service officer who's being evaluated at the hospital who took a round to the vest, and the suspect is being evaluated, but he was not struck by gunfire.
U.S. Attorney Pierre, are you looking at any terrorism charges?
Well, as the chief just indicated, we're very early in this investigation, but make no mistake, if there is anything like that, we will find it and we will file it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
The very latest there out of Washington, D.C., Jeanine Pirro, Muro Bowser, Sean Curran, and a lot of developments, Ed, as you just heard, a guest at a hotel.
Yeah, and that's the hotel, the Washington Hilton. They had the news conference there at the hotel because they were all gathered there. So he's a registered guest. They're going through that room, obviously, right now. Let's bring in our final panel here. Richard Strapoli is a former Secret Service official, and Tom Smith, we've had him on before, retired NYPD detective.
Hey guys, great to have you.
Good to always have you. Tom, how important is that he was a guest at the hotel? They think he acted alone. They're obviously going through the hotel, and we're learning that he didn't just have one gun. He had multiple weapons on him.
Yeah, there's a lot of information that they were able to get in a short period of time, and it's great for the investigation. Being that he is a guest there is going to help in this because they're going to back up with the video surveillance, see what he was doing in that hotel over the last couple of days and what measures he took to really pinpoint what he was up to and the actions he took and the path that he also took. Also, they're going to look into his background really deep. There are already search warrants being conducted at his residence. They're going to get into his social media accounts to see who he was in touch with, who, if anyone, paid for that room, paid for his travel. Any of that is going to be a big part of this investigation.
Yeah, the digital footprint. So much we still don't know about Thomas Crookshaw of Butler, which remains to be elusive and frustrating for many Americans. Richard, your former Secret Service, we just heard Sean Curran say they may be reevaluating things now because obviously the president's movement, he wants to reschedule this dinner. He's there in his tux, talking to the world about what happened. And he said he is not upset. He said, you don't have to. I commend the Secret Service. Your perspective on how this was executed. We're watching the video right now of them pulling him off. Obviously, Vice President J.D. Vance going in another direction. President says he's satisfied. What do you think? Should there be some changes?
Well, look, the response of the Secret Service detail, the Presidential Protective Detail and the counter-assault team is pretty obvious. They got to the president pretty quickly once those shots were heard having been fired out in the hallway. The problem is we've got to evaluate and take a closer look at how did it get to that point to begin with. This guy ended up a doorway away from the president with a clear line of sight, had those doors open with not one gun, 2 guns, and multiple knives by all accounts, right? It's still early in the investigation. We don't know exactly how all of that happened, but that's the part of the security plan that needs to be looked at. How was this guy able to get this close to getting towards line of sight of the president, regardless of the response from the Secret Service? Because the response was great, but the response is reactive to shots already having been fired. And that's where the evaluation needs to look at with regards to the overall security plan.
I think it's a great point. The suspect will be in federal court on Monday facing 2 counts. We heard from Jeanine Pirro. I would think, too, it would be learning a lot more about him. They're saying he's a lone wolf, which is interesting. The FBI is still collecting a lot of tips tonight. Kash Patel was saying we want to hear more 1-800-CALL-FBI. Tom, talk to us about putting together the pieces. You also get a lot of tips that maybe aren't as credible as people think they saw something, and obviously those firsthand accounts sometimes in the heat of the moment end up being erroneous.
Yeah, this is very early in the investigation. The information that we have is going to probably change by the morning with all the tips and information they're going to be getting. But the FBI is going to set up somewhat of a timeline from the beginning points of this guy's interactions and maybe wanting to do this to up until tonight. So they're going to put a timeline together, and every interaction this guy had along the way getting there. And, you know, the after-action report is going to be big with this, as you just touched on, about what the vulnerabilities were, how he got this weapon that close to the president.
Absolutely. Richard, last question to you. The president raised something that I mentioned before he spoke, which is that some people online were saying maybe the left will stop criticizing the president for wanting a secure White House ballroom. As someone who's a former Secret Service, we could argue the politics of all that, but the president's point has been he doesn't just want a magnificent ballroom, he wants one that is on the White House grounds, not some hotel in the middle of Washington that clearly was not secure. Is he making a fair point there?
Oh, he's absolutely making a fair point. Look, with this 3rd attempt on the president's life, he's now become the most targeted sitting U.S. president in the history of the United States. So for him to say, hey, I'd like to have this ballroom, this big, beautiful ballroom that's secure on the White House grounds, hey, I don't think that's too outrageous. And this once again proves that point.
Not paid, of course, by taxpayers. It's all privately funded. You know, this is a storied hotel, too. Ronald Reagan shot outside of it as well, and it's now become, again, a moment here, a flashpoint for President Trump in his 2nd term here. He still has a lot of days ahead of him as president, Tom. You know, we all obviously pray for our leaders. We're looking at, you know, some of the chaotic moments tonight. The entire cabinet was also mostly there. How many changes do you think we're going to see as they move towards events? America's 250 is coming up. A lot of high-profile events this summer.
Yeah, they're going to pay attention to it, but they have been, Bianca. You know, ever since Butler, a lot of things have changed on that front, and they're going to now enhance it even more to maybe see what events he's going to be involved in going forward.
Richard, we've got less than a minute, but Secret Service falls under the rubric of the Department of Homeland Security. We're not sitting there looking at the payroll records and the budgetary, bookkeeping as to who's being paid right now and who's not. We know TSA was not initially. You know, there's certain agencies that are fully funded and certain that are not, but a lot of people online saying it's been more than 70 days, Richard, where the Democrats have not fully funded this department. The Secret Service falls under that. Is it time to end that fight?
It's certainly time to end the fight, but whether the Secret Service agents get paid or not is irrelevant. I've been at the Secret Service when it was under DHS and we didn't get paid for an extended period of time. Doesn't matter to me. You're there to do a job. You're going to do it whether you're paid or not. And of course, we'd like to get paid, but you know what? That didn't have anything to do with what went on here this evening.
Absolutely. All right, Richard, Tom, we appreciate your insight. We thank everybody for all their insights tonight. Thank you very much. Bianca, what a night. We thought we were going to come in and be here on Saturday night talking about the president. going after the fake news, as he calls them, with a lot of jokes, and this was far from funny.
No, the show will go on. He says he wants it to be rescheduled. President Trump saying he really tried very hard to do it, but it will not be the same speech. Will not be the same tomorrow morning, of course, when everyone wakes up and learns a lot more about this shooter. Again, he's been identified as Cole Thomas Allen, 31 years old, from Torrance, California. Had a room tonight at the Hilton. Got past security, as you saw there from the video.
That's
that
right.
President Trump himself has now put out on social media.
The president said everything's going to
incredible thing to
change
witness.
within 24 hours. We'll get a lot of new information. You're going to want to start your day Sunday, 7 a.m. Eastern, with our new weekend team, Kyle and Kenzie. They'll have all the latest live right here on Newsmax. For Bianca De La Garza, I'm Ed Henry. Have a wonderful weekend, and thanks for being with Newsmax tonight. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Lady Diana Spencer became a member of the royal family, wedding Elizabeth's eldest child, Charles, in 1981, a relationship that would change the whole shape and style of the monarchy. Though Charles and Diana seemed like the fairy tale